land of freedom. He's the Redeemer, and he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer, and
Excellencies, members of state government, members of the authority of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, Chairperson of the ECOWAS Council of Ministers, President of the ECOWAS Commission, President of the UEMOA Commission, Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel region, the representative of the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, the head of MINUSMA, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is with a heavy heart that I welcome all of you today back in Accra after our virtual meeting last week. I want to thank you for your presence in this extraordinary summit, which will focus on the emerging threats in our region that stem from the military interference in Mali and its contagious influence in Guinea and Burkina Faso. Fortunately, the attempt 2 days ago to overthrow the democratically elected government of President Umaru Sissoco Embalo of Guinea-Bissau by a military coup failed, and the would-be putschists are being rounded up as we meet. I speak for all of us when I applaud President Embalo for sustaining the validity of the democratic institutions of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau. Your presence here is a strong indication of your willingness to find a sustainable solution to the resurgence of the canker in our region. Let us address this dangerous trend collectively and decisively before it devastates the whole region. Excellencies, the resurgence of coup d'etats in our region is a matter of grave concern. This evolution challenges the democratic way of life we have chosen. We need to stand firm to protect democracy and freedom in our region. You'll recall that during our virtual summit held on the 28th of January 2022, we suspended Burkina Faso from participating in ECOWAS's institutions and requested the immediate release of President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore, who was detained alongside other political actors. During our summit, we reaffirmed our commitment to upholding the principle of zero tolerance for ascending to power through unconstitutional means, and therefore demanded an immediate restoration of constitutional order by the military. To assess more accurately the security and political situations in Burkina Faso, we agreed to dispatch 2 missions, respectively, the Committee of ECOWAS Chiefs of Defense Staff, led by the Ghanaian Chief of Defense Staff, on Saturday, 30th January 2022, and a joint ministerial delegation led by the chairperson of the Council of Ministers, the Ghanaian Foreign Minister, including the President of the Commission and the UN Secretary General's representative for the Sahel and West Africa, on Monday, 31st January 2022. Their reports have been submitted for our consideration. Excellencies, I commend our continental body, the African Union, on its firm decision to suspend Burkina Faso from participating in AU organs and institutions, in alignment with the decisions of the ECOWAS Authority on the situations in Mali and Burkina Faso. The African Union expressed strong support to the efforts of ECOWAS in addressing peace and security challenges facing the region, including the resurgence of military coups. This is the solidarity and international coalition that are needed to halt the political turbulence in our region and the continent at large. Excellencies, in this extraordinary summit, we'll also examine the recent development of the situations in the Republic of Guinea and the Republic of Mali. I hope that our discussions will provide informed decisions that can reverse the deteriorating political trajectory in our region, characterized by democratic setbacks and the fragility of our security systems. I wish us fruitful deliberations and hereby bring the opening ceremony of this extraordinary summit to a close. It's not going to be possible for us in Ghana to continue forever to be dependent on foreign grants and foreign loans to keep our economy going. We ourselves will have to find the money for our development. And that is the reason why it's become necessary for us to introduce these measures like this famous tax, which has caused so much unnecessary, in my view, disputation. But nevertheless, we will continue. I'm determined to persevere, to make sure that we find the means to address some of the issues that you have got. It cannot be done other than through government. Government doesn't have any money on its own. It has money from the taxes of the people. That is the only way in which it raises money to be able to carry out. The person me boa ankwankwa adwuma for na to de bia ya je ye hu de ya no e ba betwem nyina ma hyase e twetwem mako.
The point is that you are not taxing mobile money, and it is, for me, my view and that we should not tax mobile money, because mobile money transactions, a lot of the people who are using these transactions are very poor people. You know, someone will get sent 5 CDs on mobile money. Why would you want to tax that? But we want to increase economic activity and the use of that mobile money. So
the item on electronic transfer levy bill, and you look at the third and fourth and fifth paragraph, the Speaker, it leaves you with a lot of uncertainty. The use of the word like likelihood of unforeseen circumstances. The Speaker, if we look at Order 160 of our standing orders, we are supposed to have business program in the House with certainty. It's supposed to be with certainty. Order 160. We are supposed to plan the business of the House with certainty. Now you have all this uncertainty. Mr. Speaker, if you look at Article 106(4), when it comes to filing when a bill is in the House and trying to inquire about what to do and what not to do, it is for Parliament to do. It's committee. If through this committee, the relevant committee. Now we have moved from giving the finance minister 1 week to 2 weeks. And now we are even adding more. Yet we are claiming that we cannot give the finance committee time to do that. Mr. Speaker, if our colleagues from the majority want us to have certainty, if you are withdrawing, come and withdraw now and tell us that you come back with the business. And we know that the business is not before the House. But so long as we leave it lingering, Mr. Speaker, with using words like likelihood, unforeseen circumstances. For those of us in the minority, the only conclusion is that we are trying to lay ambush on us. Because we are not certain with the things that we are saying. If we are certain, can we withdraw? So we all know that we are not before the House. And then when you are ready, you come and leave. But you leave the business and you are telling us that there's a likelihood of withdrawing unforeseen circumstances. All these things are dead things that you can measure. Because in this we are waiting to your animal. So I want to believe that there should be certainty in the business as to when we want to do this. My is on the same matter as raised by speakers before me, the Honorable Mama Yaga and the Honorable Muntaka. And Mr. Speaker, mine is a bill introduced in this House. Our rules and standing orders is referred by you to a designated committee, and that committee is enjoined by our standing orders to conduct an inquiry into the bill. So with E-Lady, I do not think that the Minister for Finance is the Committee of Finance of Parliament. I do not. And I will not accept any reasoning that he must do inquiry for and on behalf of the Finance Committee of Parliament. Indeed, if we are regulated the E-Lady bill as he wish, through a certificate of urgency, we will have the opportunity to consult the people of Ghana. So once the bill is referred to a committee of parliament, the proper place for an inquiry to engage stakeholders and the Ghanaian citizens is parliament. So I would ask, what is our finance committee doing? It is not for the Minister for Finance to go around the country. It's for our committee on finance. And Mr. Speaker, the matter of certainty and clarity that on Friday, 11 February, the bill may be withdrawn and a new bill may be introduced. Members need to know so that they plan their lives. Last week, we gave you good advice. If you had introduced a new bill last week, by now the Finance Committee will be engaging stakeholders and the public. The banks are affected, telecoms are affected, merchants are affected, consumers of telecom services are affected because their wireless will be taxed. And you hear even the Minister for Finance say that telecoms have given him 0.25% discount. If you are charging zero, is that 0.25% of zero? So the item on electronic transfer levy bill, and you look at the third and fourth and fifth paragraph. Mr. Speaker, it leaves you with a lot of uncertainty. The use of red light, likelihood of unforeseen circumstances. Mr. Speaker, if we look at order 160 of our standing orders, we are supposed to have business program in the House with certainty. It's supposed to be with certainty. Order 160. We are supposed to plan the business of the House with certainty. Now you have all this uncertainty. Mr. Speaker, if you look at Article 106, 4, when it comes to filing when a bill is in the House and trying to inquire about what to do and what not to do, it is for Parliament to do. It's committee. If through this committee, the relevant committee. Now we have moved from giving the finance minister 1 week to 2 weeks, and now we are even arguing more. Yet we are claiming that we cannot give the finance committee time to do that. Mr. Speaker, if our colleagues from the majority want us to have certainty, if you are withdrawing, come and withdraw now and tell us that you come back with the business. And we know that the business is not before the House. But so long as we leave it lingering, Mr. Speaker, with using words like
he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and he has has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer and he has labored.
The Progressive Woman's Show is that space for frank, open, honest, provocative, perhaps even revolutionary conversations about today's woman.
If you go to the banking sector, there are people there who want to sleep with you before they give you a job. If you want to be a teacher, if you want to be a civil servant, there is someone who will say, oh, I can get it for you easily. All you have to do is drop your pen.
It was something that was demanded of me. My editor, my news editor in the newsroom, thought if I don't pull down my skirt, I was not going to be put on air.
I am yet to come into contact with anybody asking me to sleep with him to go on TV. I will not sleep with any man for a position. I will sleep with the man I want to sleep with for the pleasure of it.
When governments come to power and they say that the women are not showing dynamism and the women, for me all that, forgive my Latin, this time of the day, all that is bullshit.
I practice public speaking in church.
Okay.
I practice service in church. I practice leadership in church. So those are things that's why the church is important in our lives.
And that's how you do it. It's
So
not buy Range Rover and do something in church.
It takes me right
In church.
When you mention Jesus, you don't have to say Jesus. You have to say Jesus.
Well, they say it's a man's world out there, isn't it? Unfortunately, I don't know why, because we seem to be doing all the work. They are the head and we are the neck. Excuse me, can you be a head without a neck?
No, please. No, please.
Yeah.
Well, hey, ladies, let's continue to hold up the sky.
He has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He's the Redeemer and
a very good morning to you wherever you are. Thanks for joining us on the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. We are live from the studios of Pan-African Television, but we are live on several other networks. Radio, television. A big thank you to all our affiliates, and a big thank you to those of you who are watching us via Facebook on Pan-African Television, also on YouTube with the same name. Thank you to all of you, and thank you for making time to join us this morning. This morning we are talking about a meeting that was held here in Ghana. Of course, ECOWAS's attention has been attracted by the number of ongoing military coups. One was attempted in Guinea-Bissau. We already have the Malian situation unresolved. The Guinea situation is also still unresolved. Then we have Burkina Faso. That is also an emerging one. And then that attempt in Guinea-Bissau. ECOWAS is unhappy. In fact, with the communique they issued after a meeting that was held here in Ghana, presided over by our president, this is what they say, that the authority raises concern over the breach of constitutional order in the region, notably with the recent military coup d'etat and attempted coup d'etat in some member states. In this regard, the authority reaffirms its commitment to strengthening democracy, freedom, and good governance in the region, and instructs the Commission to expedite the review of the 2001 Supplementary Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance and the related legal instruments. The heads of state and government expressed their deep gratitude to His Excellency Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who is President of the Republic and Chairperson of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, for his leadership in ensuring the success of the summit. So the summit was held here in Ghana. The question is, how do we resolve this issue? So we're talking about the growing insecurity situation here in West Africa, where democracy seems to be under threat. 4 countries is a stretch, maybe a little too much. Which country will be next is one of the questions everybody is asking. So we'll be talking about that, and then we'll move on to the discussion on the electronic transaction levy. It will not go away. This week, we expected some work to be done on it in Parliament. In fact, if you watch, it's always a signal of people's interest is the Facebook page of Parliament. Of course, little happened on it. We are being told that next week, probably, the government will withdraw the levy and then resubmit it to Parliament. The question is, what changes would they be making? The proposal that we've heard is that government has decided to reduce the levy from 1.75 to 1.50. Will that find favor with the opposition and Ghanaians who are unhappy with it? Well, we'll see what happens next week, because there was question even over the uncertainty of the plan that was announced in Parliament by the majority. The minority group says they are unclear as to when this will happen, how it will happen, and whether it will even happen at all. The consultations and the town hall meetings are ongoing. In the meantime, talking about the economy, the latest, Moody's has downgraded us again. Well, they say you are not a basket case yet, but we are worried about you. That's what Moody's and all the ratings agencies are saying about our economy. Then we'll end with UTAC and government. They went to court, National Labour Commission and UTAC. The court says, go and attempt to resolve your issues and report back to me within this particular time frame. Government says they are ready to negotiate with UTAC. We'll see how that ends. So that will be our last discussion on the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. My name is Sena Nombo. Let me take a short break. When we come back, I'll introduce my panel and then we'll start off. Stick and stay.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and
Trasacco Estates, home to Accra's most beautiful and luxurious homes, presents its newest addition, Trasacco Springs, a premium master planned community of service plots surrounded by an exhaustive list of amenities. The gated community of Tema to Accra Motorway presents you the finest opportunity to own a land that suits your preferred size, budget, and payment terms. Trasacco Springs is open to you for development. Our on-site sales executives are ready. Call on 055 659 2658.
Hello, what are you doing Tuesday to Friday, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. every day? You should be watching The Couch. I'll tell you why. On Tuesdays, we talk social issues, lifestyle, health, all those everyday issues that affect us in the big ways. Late Wednesdays are for book reviews. Thursdays are for the hard talk, those socio-economic, policy-oriented, political questions that demand for the tough questions to be asked. And personality profiling Fridays, when we get to know the stories behind the winning personalities we love. Inspirational story from inspirational personalities. Hey, listen, you really cannot miss The Couch with me, Amma Pratt. Still, the only TV show with a hat.
he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and
Thank you very much for sticking and staying with us on the Mother of All Talk Shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. And of course, once again, a big thank you to our affiliate stations across the country. Let me say a big thank you to Ahunto 92.3 FM and Volta 1 TV. If you're joining us via any of our social media handles, please use the comment section and share your thoughts with us. I'll read them as we go along in the show. Thank you for your time. Let's start with the matter of coups in West Africa. 4 so far, 3 successful. The attempted one, Guinea-Bissau. We don't know what else that group would attempt in that country again. ECOWAS is worried. Should we be? Well, we'll start that discussion now. But before that, my panel this morning, let me start from my immediate left. Joyce Bawa-Muktari, Esquire, is an aide to former President John Dramani Mahama, a former Deputy Minister for Transport. And sitting close to her is Dr. Valentin Mensah, who is a political economist. And getting closer to Mujib Rahman, who is a member of the MPP's communication team, is Sami Jemfi, who is the National Communications Officer of the National Democratic Congress. A big thank you to all of them for joining us this morning. And let me start the discussion with, of course, coups in West Africa. Let me start with Doc. Doc, good morning. And wonderful to see you. I hope I haven't taken you by surprise.
Yes, you have. And you've got a politically charged panel here. And so I don't know if I'll be swallowed or if I can live unscathed. So I
think you'll more than survive.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So it's good to be here. And thank you. And good morning to your listeners and viewers. So this coup d'etat issue is a very significant matter of African countries. And it's that we've been sweeping, it's like we've been sweeping the dust under the carpet. So the ECOWAS meeting, we talk about how to stem the tide of coup d'etats, but we haven't looked at the underlying issues. See, when we gained independence from our colonial masters, we, like the Singapore and other countries did, they sat down and looked at the new order, how to create the new order. Okay, we gained the independence and we went back to our traditional state where our presidents wanted to be like the chiefs, the kings. So with that, like a federal state or a patrimonial state where the president owned everything out to the friends, families, and party members. So instead of developing a modern state on meritocracy, we are far from that. We still have government making appointments to party members, family members, and without considering whether they are capable of performing, the merit of that. So if you have a state like that, there's no way you can gain the political legitimacy. When you are governing, you need the political legitimacy from your citizens. And you need to be seen to be fair to all. You need to have the national interest at heart. So if you are looking at just a few of them, then you are not going anywhere. You can protect yourself, but still you haven't solved the issue. Because when I was working in the mining industry, we realized that because of the fact that mining interests or properties are spread anywhere, you could have the best security companies protecting you. When I was in Congo, because we had to go and develop the mine just after the war, we were given the best security firm to protect us. We went and started mining. But we quickly came to the realization that your best security is not the security company, it's the community itself. So once the community is happy, your assets are protected. Okay, so if you are running or governing a country It's not your military or your defense systems that will protect you. You have to seek the national interest. And if the people are happy, even if there's a coup d'etat like they did in Cote d'Ivoire some time ago, the people will rise and rise to the streets, and then the coup makers will be overrun. So we have to look at the salient issues, not just wishing coup d'etat away. Okay, the other issue is the rule of law as well. We have our constitutions, and we have few individuals or presidents doing whatever they want with the constitutions. So if you are talking about the rule of law, everybody is the same under the law. How can one person get up and say that I want to go extend my term, the third term, and that is allowed? It goes through smoothly. That happened in Guinea. It happened in Cote d'Ivoire. Where was ECOWAS? Where was ECOWAS? So these are the important issues that we have to take on board. So you have your constitution that says 2 terms. It doesn't depend on how the government feels at the end of its term. 2 terms mean 2 terms. So if you think you are above the law and you amend the constitution so that you go for the 3rd or 4th term because you have the military behind you, the people will be your best protector. And the people said 2 terms. Just because you feel powerful, you change it to 3 or 4 terms. And you think that you can survive that. That is not possible. Then we have the main matter of accountability. That is also something that we toy with in Africa. You go to our constitution, most of the matters bordering on accountability, we've borrowed constitution clauses from other countries, but we've watered down on the controls, checks and balances. But democracy, it's all checks and balances and accountability. So if you don't have that, you cannot develop democratically. So, for example, if you look at asset declaration that we have here, it's porous. And most African countries have the same. If you look at the research of most transparent asset declaration systems in the world, you see all the African countries at the bottom. They don't want to separate their private interests from the national interest. So they don't want their assets to be differentiated from whatever the state has. So when they come to power, instead of declaring your asset, you don't want to do that. You and the people that you are governing, they are ruling the country. The democracy is the rule by the people. They have the right to know. They have the right to transparency. So if few individuals are denying the citizens of that information and think because they feel powerful, then they are not helping themselves. So the coup d'etat, when it comes to the 2 countries, like I'll start with Guinea. That one, I'm not somebody who will wish a coup d'etat on anybody, because I survived all the coup d'etats in Ghana. When I was 3, that was when we had the first coup d'etat. Maybe I'm older than most of you here, Joyce and Samir, I'm sure. So that I had just turned 3 when the first one happened. Then when on my 9th birthday, the second one happened. And then we went downhill. So the first one, up till now, we think it was the CIA that came, and only CIA can come and stage a coup d'etat in your country. You don't look at the circumstances that led so that you find a solution. You talk to most Ghanaians, they will brush away the fact that there were underlying conditions that resulted in the coup d'etat. The second one, that one I was 9, so I could see a lot. And that one too, it wasn't a fair system, a coup d'etat, because it was based on the fact that we devalued our currency. And the fact that the currency was overvalued because we underwent significant episodes of inflation. And when that happens, you cannot maintain your currency. So the currency was fixed at a rate. And so you couldn't export when your currency is overvalued. And that one, it was quite political. A government that, and that resulted in a lot of coup d'etats. Any government that tried to devalue the currency had problems. It was only after the 1981 coup, or the President Rawlings, after the economic reform program, that we could devalue our currency. That was a major issue. So the second one was a bit unfair. A government had just come into power and was trying to restore the economic normalcy. That didn't happen. So that regime mostly destroyed the economy of Ghana. So from 1972 to somewhere 1976, we didn't have an economy. Everything was down. Then we had the Akufu himself, the same group also staging before the 1979, which was quite serious. We were in secondary schools. You wake up and your pocket money. My parents were in Côte d'Ivoire. My pocket money was just wiped out. There was nowhere I could get money because the currency had to be changed. And then I think there was a time that if you held an amount of money, that one was considered, I don't know, as was it illegal? 50 cedis or something. So that we couldn't, most students suffered, and most Ghanaians suffered during that regime. And then the sort of brutalities that we underwent in 1979 and 81. So coup d'etat is not any solution for a country. And the military will come and say, we are going to save you, the people. But they are coming for their own interests. They are going to behave like the presidents. They are coming, as soon as they come to power, they will behave as kings and then dish out whatever they think is theirs to their followers and their family. So coup d'etat, not a solution. The solution is for us Africans to look at the political development of our countries. And this political development are the three things I've talked about. Developing a modern state where the patrimonialism of one person thinking everything is for him, and dishing out to whoever he wants, to a state where everything is based on merit and everybody feels part of that state. Then the rule of law, where nobody can manipulate the constitution or the laws we have in the country to suit himself. Then accountability. When we've got the three, then we'll know that coup d'etat will not be an issue in our countries. But until then, we have issues to resolve. So Guinea, as I said, the constitution was changed. Burkina Faso's issue is a bit unfortunate, and I don't know if it is because of their limited resources. Because every government has fundamental responsibilities. The first one is defense. Then you've got protection of the people and their goods. Okay, so, and the maintenance of rule of law and others come after that, and the provision of public goods. So if you toy with any of them, you are in trouble. So the defense and then protection. So I don't know what's happening in Burkina Faso, but maybe the defense against the incursions could have created the situation of instability. But coup d'etat was not the solution. So we have a long way to go to avoid such situations. And coup d'etat is the worst thing that can happen. Like I said, I really suffered that. First, the fact that the economy of Ghana got destroyed, and then also the brutalities that took place after that. And most of us even migrated after Form 5. We had to migrate. There was no, after 6th Form, sorry. There was no option to migrate. The universities had shut down. There was no food. And you see most of the people of my contemporaries, most of them are in the diaspora, because we didn't have any choice, not because we were not patriotic, but there was nothing that we could do. So we ended up in other countries as immigrants. Hopefully thankfully some of us pursued the education. That was maybe out of providence, because it was difficult. And so I would urge with all of us as citizens to change this attitude of apathy and look at national interest properly, because it may be your party in power. You think that because you are benefiting, the long-term interest is not an issue, but that is not how we should think about our nation. We should look at the long-term interest. See, when we look at South Korea and Ghana, we have almost the same culture. What sets us apart is our short-term orientation and orientation. So after independence, they looked at their long-term interest. And now let's see where they are. They have the same problems of the same culture of high power distance, high respect for authority, collectivism, other things, but then they have the long-term interest. We have the power distance and collectivism and short-term interest, where we just look at our tradition, spend on our dead, weddings, churches and others without the future, our grandchildren, Asian countries are thinking about those ones. We are thinking about how to give befitting burials. And where are we going like that? We need somebody with vision to come and change our psyche, a paradigm shift in the African countries. That is what is required to avoid these situations. So we may have the security, so we may benefit from a short-term say reprieve, but the best thing we can do is to make sure we develop politically to withstand such actions of people may be coming for their own self-interest in the sense that they are coming to save our situation, but they are just coming to also loot what they can and go. So.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc, for kicking it off for us. Let me move to Sammy, and then when he is done, I'll read your messages on this issue. Good morning.
Well, good morning, Sena, and good morning to all distinguished panelists and our esteemed listeners and viewers across the globe. You see, we've all come to an agreement that the best form of governance for Africa is constitutional democracy, and to a large extent, multi-party democracy. And many African countries have embarked on this journey for some years now. Most of our democracies are in their fledgling states. We are not at the levels of advanced democracies like the United States of America, the United Kingdom yet, but we've made significant strides in the advancement of democracy. And so the collective objective of Africa should be to consolidate this democratic experiment so that we can derive the desired outcomes and benefits that we want from this system of governance that we have adopted for ourselves. And so I do not subscribe to military interventions. I do not subscribe to the unconstitutional removal of constitutionally elected governments. So what that does is that it erodes democratic institutions and take countries backwards relative to the consolidation of constitutionalism and so on. Now, the question we need to ask ourselves is, why then are we having this series of military interventions, particularly in the West African sub-region? This is the Burkina Faso coup d'etat is the third successful coup d'etat. We've also had Niger, okay, and in the Africa region we've had Chad, we've had Guinea-Bissau, though unsuccessful. And so you can see a chain of military interventions across the sub-region and the region as a whole. Why is that so? If we all have come to a decision that democracy is the right path to chart for the development of Africa, then why these series of military interventions? And even before I attempt to provide an answer to that question, I'm sure we all have noticed that these military interventions are very popular amongst the masses in the countries that they have occurred. Now, when the Mali, the Guinea, and the Burkina Faso coup d'etat happened, people went on the street in their numbers to jubilate and to celebrate the coup makers. In fact, the coup makers are more popular than the democratically elected leaders who have been ousted by these mutinous military officers. There must be a compelling reason for that. And that is why I agree with the issues that Doc has raised on this set this morning. Issues that have to do with the underlying causes for these interventions, which the ordinary people in these countries identify with, connect with. You see, so coup d'etat, not desirable, we all don't want it, but if the people are left with no other choice, they will support it. It will happen and the people will support it, and that is what we are seeing. And so it behoves on leaders in African countries to examine these underlying conditions and to offer practicable solutions to these issues immediately. Look, make no mistake about it, none of us are safe. We are all at risk of military insurgency, particularly those of us in West Africa. It started from Mali, across the Sahel region. It is now in Burkina Faso, our next door neighbors. And so we are not an island, we are not safe, we are not removed from these threats. And therefore we must take these issues seriously and begin to think about honest and practical ways of solving these issues so that these coup d'etats will not even arise in the first place. First of all, we know that what largely accounts for these military interventions is the issue of lack of probity and accountability in the administration of countries. probity and accountability is a major factor. Then, like Doc said, is the issue of the socio-economic needs of the people. The people are not asking for too much. They are asking for an equitable society where their socio-economic needs, their basic socio-economic needs will be met. Societies where there are job opportunities for the youth who have trained in different fields, whether in school or in the informal sector, job opportunities so that they can earn a living and take care of their families. They are looking for basic amenities like health infrastructure, educational infrastructure, roads, and facilities to make life meaningful, useful, and convenient for them. These are the basic needs that people in Africa and all across the world need. The question is, has multi-party democracy, has constitutionally elected leaders been able to address these needs? The answer is no. The answer is no. If you look at the Mali and the Burkina Faso coup, the similarity in both military interventions has to do with the failure of those governments to stem violent attacks from insurgent groups in those countries over a long period of time. In fact, since 2015, when Blaise Compaoré resigned as president of Burkina Faso, the country has been under attacks from so-called Islamic extremist groups affiliated to Al-Qaeda and ISIS for 5 to 6 years. As of 2020, Burkina Faso had recorded about 500 cases of violent attacks. But in a short period of time, of just a year, that is from 2020 to 2021, the incidence of those violent attacks increased astronomically to over 1,500. Communities and villages were attacked, people were maimed, people were murdered in the hundreds, while the government looked on helplessly. And this has happened, like I said, for 5 continuous years, and the situation is not getting any better. Of course, we do know that after the resignation of Blaise Compaoré and that failed coup attempt in 2015, which led to the purging of the security agencies in Burkina Faso, the security apparatus of Burkina Faso became increasingly or became significantly weakened. And so the ability to stem those violent attacks, those armed campaigns from these terrorist groups in the Sahel region was left much to be desired. And so that is the issue in Burkina Faso, and they say it was the same issue that led to the Malian coup in 2020. Now the question is, what was the sub-regional group ECOWAS doing? Okay, what proactive steps were taken by ECOWAS to assist these member countries to address these problems? I cannot think of anything because they did nothing. And it does appear that President Akufo-Addo, who is currently the chairman of ECOWAS, is displaying the same poor leadership he's been displaying in Ghana in the last 5 years, even at the ECOWAS stage. Because the current ECOWAS we have now is not the ECOWAS of 2016-2017, okay, which intervened timeously in the Gambia impasse involving Yahya Jammeh and ensured that he didn't have his way relative to the amendment of the constitution to allow him to go for a third term, but had to leave power for the opposition that had been democratically elected. It is that kind of proactiveness that we want to see on the part of ECOWAS. This whole excuse that, oh, member countries are sovereign and all that. Yes, Gambia was sovereign. But in 2016, when the signs were clear that Yahya Jammeh was not interested in handing over power peacefully to the opposition, ECOWAS intervened, and they intervened at the right time. Interestingly, former President Mahama was one of the mediators of that intervention by ECOWAS. He and President Buhari saw to the peaceful transition of power from Yahya Jammeh's government to the opposition. Now, I believe that if ECOWAS had displayed the same level of proactiveness in the Malian case, in the Burkina Faso case, security and defense in these countries would not have degenerated to the levels they degenerated to before this coup d'etat. Okay, it is not for nothing, Sena, that ECOWAS has a standby military force. That standby military force is supposed to maintain peace and stability in the sub-region. And so when member countries come under attack from insurgent groups, ECOWAS should not sit aloof for the situation to degenerate, for military officers to take advantage of that. What has happened in Burkina Faso and Mali are highly regrettable. I believe that they could have been avoided if ECOWAS had been more proactive. But beyond that, back to the issues of accountability, the issues of fairness, justice, equity, prosperity, employment opportunities, addressing the socio-economic needs of the people. You look across the region now and you get sad, you get disappointed, because not much is being done by leaders to address these issues. Look at Mali. Corruption was on the ascendancy before that military intervention. You see, that is what makes it easy for sometimes even devious military elements to take advantage of the system and launch these kind of coup d'etats, which in time past have not yielded desired outcomes. Okay, it's the same thing that happened in Guinea, where Alpha Conde was oppressing his opponents, including the media, shutting down media organizations, arresting and detaining political opponents without trial, and of course the popular one, the unpopular one, if I can put it that way, the attempt to amend the constitution to go for a third term. And when he actually did that, you had now ECOWAS President Akufo-Addo attending his inauguration, a clear endorsement of that unconstitutional act. Now, if ECOWAS leaders will behave this way, endorsing constitutional tyrants who amend constitutions so they can run for a third term, what moral authority will they have to condemn such military interventions? It has happened in Ivory Coast. Because Ivory Coast, the government of Ouattara has the support of French, they have not recorded any military intervention yet, but ECOWAS has not condemned. We continue to fraternize with them. They continue to be a member state of ECOWAS. Okay, and we are not looking at the underlying conditions. Even in our own country, Ghana, how are democratic institutions addressing these underlying reasons for these kind of military interventions across the sub-region that we have outlined here? In the last 2020 elections, how many people were killed? 8. Have they been given any justice? What has happened to the perpetrators? Not even a word of denunciation or condemnation from the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, President Akufo-Addo, who was the beneficiary of all these attacks in Savelugu, in Techiman South, and across the country. Even in Dododododo, in the capital city, 8 people have been murdered in cold blood in the name of an election. No justice has been served them or their families. Look at what happened to Ahmed Swale, an investigative journalist who together with his colleague Anas Arimi Yawanas, undertook that number 12 corruption expose. He was murdered in cold blood. What has happened to that matter? Have we seen any transparent investigations into that issue and the punishment of the perpetrators? No. Okay. What about the issue of probity and accountability within our own Ghanaian democratic context? Look at the opulent lifestyle that our president and his appointees are living in this period of extreme economic difficulties for Ghanaians. Today, there are industrial actions all over. UTAG is on strike, TEWI is on strike, CLOSAG is on strike. I don't know whether they've rescinded the strike yet. But CTAG until recently was also on strike. You have so many workers' union on strike because government says that they don't have money to address their concerns. And yet, in this time of excruciating economic hardships, where drivers are complaining about exorbitant prices of fuel, building materials have skyrocketed, food commodities on the market are skyrocketing by the day because of the free fall of the Ghana cedi and the astronomical increases in fuel prices we are recording. Yet our president chooses to travel in hyper expensive luxurious jets that cost this country a colossal amount of $14,000 per hour. And this has been going on for years. You do know that in 2019 alone, these luxurious travels cost the country a whopping 63 million Ghana cedis in only 9 months. That is some 630 billion old Ghana cedis. And all these matters are in the media space. They are in the public domain. Ghanaians are aware of it. The military and our security agencies are aware of it. And so where leaders are not showing any sensitivity to the plight of Ghanaians, where they are leading without any sense of responsibility, like that, it triggers, such tendency, military intervention tendencies. We are not calling for any military intervention in Ghana. It is the last thing we want to see now. What we are saying is that all of us, the political establishment, which is not made up of just the NPP, all of us must learn lessons from what is happening in our neighboring countries and make sure that we address such threats in our context so that we do not have the occurrence of any military intervention in Ghana. The 1981 coup should be the last coup, and this 1992 constitutional dispensation must last forever. But if that is to happen, then all of us as politicians, whether we are in the NDC or in the NPP, must ensure that we deal with the issues that normally underpin such interventions in military countries. Governments must become more responsible and more sensitive, respecting the rule of law, building strong institutions and not bastardizing state institutions like it is happening in Ghana when the people lose confidence in the judiciary, like it is beginning to rear its head in Ghana, when people lose confidence in the Electoral Commission, when people lose confidence in the police. They have no other choice than to subscribe, to such interventions that are not helpful for our development and collective progress as a country. So, without belaboring the point, I believe that these are the issues we need to look at and address these issues with a high sense of sincerity, candor, and urgency, because none of us are safe. We are all at risk. And more importantly, ECOWAS must set up, President Akufo-Addo must set up. This firefighting approach will not work. Waiting for coup d'etats to happen only to issue directives or sanctions, which in most cases are proving ineffective. They issue the sanctions and the people revolt against the sanctions. They issue the sanctions and the people celebrate the coup makers. So they have become so unpopular because they have become so removed from the realities of Africa. And so President Akufo-Addo, leaders in the sub-region, members of ECOWAS must sit up and ensure that they become more proactive. When they intervened in the Gambia situation in 2016-2017, we all commended them for that. And it is that kind of proactive leadership that we want to see on the part of ECOWAS. And I rest my case.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before I come to Mujib, let me do a couple of the messages you've been sending us. Wude Duje says the typical air of ostentatious pomposity that surround the people who we choose to serve us was publicly displayed to the world by the MCA from Secondary Takrady. This is a practical chapter from the ethics book of Lanando. He says, only African leaders will fly private jets while they impose taxes on the poor. They are always ready to travel to Europe and elsewhere to discuss African problems, whilst the AU headquarters is there for their use. Will the European countries come to Africa for us to tell them how to run their economy? It's time for an African wave, he says. Charles Thompson says that the country Ghana does not belong to any political party or any group of politicians. Ghana first. Malaysia and Singapore play the Western countries at their own game, and look at where they are now. Seriously, if we have power drunk leaders like what is happening in Ghana, why can't coup take place? It is high time the so-called ECOWAS sit up and question its own credibility. Koshi Badoho, he says it's not true that coups are pathologically bad. If there was a coup in Ghana, the people of South, the victims of Ayawaso West Wagon and Techima South violence, would jubilate because it would have been the only way of removing an irresponsible government. NAPCO trainees and all other Ghanaians whose hopes were dashed would jubilate because it would be the only way of removing a deceptive government. The existence of bad governance is a justification for the presence of a deterrent force. That's the coup. Awudu Musa says the coups in West Africa, for that matter, of sub-region, is becoming one too many. African leaders are corrupt and power drunk. This one, okay, there's some comments on some other issues that we'll be discussing pretty shortly. Dominic Lopo says, see, these coups are happening as a result of politicians' inability to tell the truth and their inability to fulfill their promises and give employment. It's sent down from Nkonya, is it Bombola? This one, Ntanam Jacob, I hope I got your name right, says Akufo-Addo has destroyed West Africa because his appointment as the ECOWAS chairman. How many countries have plotted coup? Then it goes ahead to say 11 isn't a nice and wise way to a country's development. You say, Paul John says, let's all think about how we can contribute our quota to make Ghana a better place for all of us. How do we all contribute our ideas and resources for the betterment of all? Let's all get involved to make Ghana, our beloved country, a better place for all of us. All hands on deck. Bless Ghana first. That's what he says. Abna Pokuyaka says, how possible can a Ghanaian think that Nkrumah's coup was justifiable when that coup ostensibly sets this country back? The CIA has declassified his document showing clearly his hand in the 1966 coup. Why should the West be interested in ousting Nkrumah if they did not find him to be a threat to their continuous hold on Ghana and Africa? Let us think, please, and stop. Is it political subtlety? You say, Eli Bimpe says the issues of coup d'etat in Africa goes beyond extension of terms of office. In situations where the government is clueless, in the case of Ghana, and upon that the government tries to manipulate the judiciary, parliament, and use the military and national security to intimidate voices of reason and buying Christian council and media houses and forcing unpopular policies down the throat of citizens can equally lead to coup. Elder Roxanne Anyimedu says, I salute the best communicator, Mr. Sami Jemfi. I don't think coup d'etat is the way to go. But if you have democratic elected leaders deciding to rule like dictators, then the only option is coup. 90% is against levy, but the leaders of the day are bent to push it through. Our truth, what do you expect? There is also Anefi Adams. I hope I got it right. Sena Kanteko was also condemned democratic autocrats and bad governance. Those are some of the things that lead to coups. This is okay. So those are some of the messages. I'll read some more as we go along in the show. Mujib.
I've listened to Doc and I've listened to my friend Same and the issues enumerated of the creeping coup d'etats in West Africa in recent times. But I am worried this morning because, Doc, this is not the first time that Africa, and for that matter West Africa, experience coup d'etats across the countries. And I'm worried because I felt that the first fooled, they say, is not a fool, but the second or the third one, you have no justification not to be called a fool. Doc, we saw how we struggled to liberate ourselves from the colonial masters. And in the 60s and 70s, you saw how, as you've enumerated, the whole of the Africa, and for that matter, West Africa, was engulfed with coup d'etats, taking over legitimate elected governments. And it took us a longer and conscious effort to stabilize the system. And I would have wished that any leader coming after those leaders would have it at the back of their mind that it can still happen. As it can still happen, then something has to be done, and you guard against the system. Doc, why was pressure on Africa to go to constitutional democracy? It was because of dividends. Because there's something there That is why people were concerned that we have to go to multi-party democracy. Other than that, all the systems you have mentioned, they have been practiced elsewhere, and there were systems. Whether the people were comfortable with those systems or not, but those were the systems that were practiced. And you can take the French as an example, how scholars and philosophers will have to work tirelessly to change the system at that time. But Doc, for the causes of what we are experiencing, we all know it. If we walk on the street and ask a 10, 15-year-old chap, I think he should be able to tell you, like Sami said, probity and accountability, living without hope, opportunities, finishing school, am I assured I'll get employment? And when the system is not giving hope to the people and they are living in despair, without hope, then we are in for some of these things. And we can't just throw our hands in despair and say, oh, after all, what can we? We can do something. Doc, I, at a point, got a colleague and we did some analysis and then some research, and I came to the conclusion that our systems are not sustainable. Long before I said it, they say it's not sustainable. Because, Doc, what is the purpose? Today we have elected you as a leader in this studio. The purpose is to serve us, not to lord over us. And these are two things. Serving the people is different from lording yourself on the people. But I think that, Doc, let's be sincere to them, let's be very fair to ourselves. Most African leaders are lording themselves on the people. They are not serving. When you go to my hometown, Upper West Wa, for instance, and you are coming from my village, and then you see the appointees, and it doesn't limit to only MPP. Doc, when it comes to these issues, I always advise that let's look at it in a nationalistic manner and put our political differences. Because I mean, today, if we fail as a country, you won't be here to talk NDC, I won't be here to talk MPP. But if we are able to get our country together and let Ghana be the best, so that we can be discussing our politics and trying to create opportunity for our people. That is what matters when it comes to issues of coup d'etats. And when they started, we've been listening to experts. Now, people thought that maybe we don't pray, nobody pray, it happens in Ghana. But we are not also insulated. We can't say 100% that it can happen because it has happened before. And this morning I was telling a friend on the way here that the military man today is not the military man, Dog, when in the 1960s, when you were 3 years, but then we didn't know where we were, but then you see that. So the military man today is not confined in the small cubicle in the 60s and the 70s. And the military man is a human being coming from our communities. Madam, we have military men from Wa, we have military men from Nandom, military men from Tamal. They are here, and they live with us. They also feel what we feel. They experience what we experience. The difference is that he's been trained to handle those sophisticated weapons. And the country belongs to all of us. So I felt that I am sorry because we are calling it upon ourselves. Because, Doc, what is it that if in Ghana, for instance, long after independence, Doc, look at the road sector in this country and look at the resources that we have in this country. So are we moving forward as a people? Look, today, if you are traveling from Accra to Kumasi with your car, it's a dual single lane. It's now that Air Force is being, but after 40-something, 50 years, it was dual carriage road. We don't have the statistics, the number of people that have lost their life as a result of that single dual carriage. Look, take from Accra to Cape Coast to Takrad, it's dual. But that part of the country undoubtedly is the food basket of the country. But we have had series of governments, both military and democratic. And I want to sentence on the democratic. Doc, it's still the dividends. What is the democratic system dividends to the people that we have adopted? Let's ask ourselves. Doc, if you are finishing, your child is finishing university in its final year, then the mother and father will start discussing what is the future after national service. Job is not guaranteed. how are we going to manage our ward until such a time that the person gets a job? These are the security threats that our leaders fail to solve for us. The judiciary, very important. When people are assured, whether poor or rich, that when you are being wrong and your human rights have been violated and you resort to the law court, the judicial system, irrespective of your situation, your matter will be looked at. Look, it is not our fault that some people are Wala, some are Ashanti, some are, but we are together as a country. And any leader coming should be able to hold all of us together. Look, it's the national kitty, and others call it the social good. How evenly is distributed to the people is another matter. And whatever you are doing, the people are watching. On this score, aside with Same, Doc, how can the coup be popular than the democratic elected government? Oh, so what happened in Guinea? Look at what happened in Bodo. That people pour onto the street. It's just like the 70s when people pour on the street were calling for more blood. It is because the people lost confidence in the system. Look, the people who only lose confidence on the system when you don't care about them. When you think that it is my right to live that kind of life I'm living to the detriment of the majority of the people, of your people. So, Doc, I think that it is important that we keep telling our leaders that this is not the best way to go. Why won't you account for the people? Is the money for you? Doc, let's take our constitution. Power belongs to the people. So whatever resources on the state that you are just holding those resources in trust for the people. So whatever you are doing, the people don't even need to ask. They demand accountability. So these are some of. So it's a reality that we are confronted, and we as a people will decide whether we sit and consume by it or something serious is done to help the situation. Other than that, I think that what happened in the 70s, 80s is what we are experiencing. Doc, I have never, and I'm not a believer of coup d'etats. But Doc, if you conduct a research today, I'm telling you, in Ghana, you'll be seen to be getting people who may be thinking that probably that is the best way to go. It is because they are losing hope in the system. It is because of the hardship. But Doc, my worry is sometimes when we get opportunities like this, I don't put political parties ahead of my national interest. Doc, collectively, we can share the blame. So if maybe all these 60s down the line, dual carriage were constructed, nobody will come in the 80s and 90s and be constructing dual carriage. That is the reality. If our universities were more equipped and our hospitals, we have better hospitals across the 10 regions, then nobody will be asking for any leader to give. Only for renovation and then replacement of outmoded equipment and etc. etc. That is happening elsewhere. Why? What can't we achieve that? What can't we achieve that? So, Doc, it's a very serious issue, and I think that and they themselves, they are afraid because they themselves, the leaders themselves, they are afraid because they know. Some of you were saying that what can they do? 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 The ECOWAS, they can. But we all saw when they went to Guinea how the people treated them. Yeah. That is not it, because they have lost confidence. You sat as ECOWAS. The guy changed his own constitution to give him opportunity for a third term, and you kept quiet. Now we fought to liberate ourselves, and you are here to tell us what?
You even attended in the.
Look at what happened in Cote d'Ivoire, and Cote d'Ivoire man is a victim, and you were also there. Look, isn't it insulting to the common person in Guinea? Yeah. So that is the issue. But Doc, I think another critical point we have to look at to be able to stem some of this thing is our constitutions. Yeah. And I think that I don't know much about the other country, but Ghana constitution, I am of the opinion that it has to be looked at. And I'm always been asking what happened to the Constitutional Review Commission report that was set under Prof. Mill's time, I think it has to be looked at. Look, for instance, we wouldn't allow that power concentrated. There's a tendency that the man will do something you don't like. Let the police IGP goes through the ranks. You have no power as president to sack him. Let's get other critical areas. Look, other advanced countries have done. That is why Obama advised that let the systems be strong. It's not about putting macho men there. It's about when the Chief Justice is produced by the judicial system, how can he be manipulated? But when the man felt that, oh, madam, my wife this morning, I owe my appointment to her, then naturally, you are bound to follow whatever she asks you to do because you want to secure your job. And it is the constitution. And you see, when they are in operation, they will be telling you they will change. But when they are in power, because it favors them, as a people, why can't we call for looking at 71 whole days? And we have tax strike getting to 1 month, our universities are closed, kids are suffering. Why? When there's no resources, let's manage with the little. Also cut down your expenses and let's distribute it fairly so that the lecturers will get small. You too can, even if it's your V8 packet, and you can use a pickup. But what is so special about us? And this thing is not only under MPP, it cut across present and past government. And now that now even when you see their demeanor and the way they speak, nobody will tell you they are scared. But that is the reality. And power belongs to the people, and the people's power is strong. To the Alpha Conde, nobody can save you. Nobody can save you. Why? Doc, it's for 8 years or 4 years. When your time is up, you go and another person. Doc, the other reason could be you are not the only person with the exceptional knowledge. Let somebody also come. That is the reality. So, Doc, it is a reality staring at our face. We face it with truth, we are safe. If we don't save it with truth, we are doomed as a people. And we can do it. We can do it. I mean, you travel. We travel across the breadth of this country. You see the poverty level in Ghana. Sometimes you ask yourself, how are we going to get out of this? 60-something years after independence, man, you get a point. So when at a point the people said this system we don't have hope in it, how then do you come and tell them that is the system we have to go with? Sena, you will belong to a system because you will be respected, you will get the opportunities, the system is fair and just. That is why you belong to the system. But if those ingredients are not there, what is the essence of? Ask many people, those who genuinely they want to be here or they want to go outside and live, and you see, when lecturers are telling you they are leaving the lecture room and they are traveling to outside, they will tell you what is happening. So, but I don't want us to go back to those days. But the people haven't gotten any evidence, any dividends from democracy. Doc, is it only about going to queue and vote, and after voting, whoever is elected as legislature or president, that's all?
No, that is the problem of our citizens.
That
one is just procedural.
Yeah.
The most substantive is the day-to-day accountability.
It's very, very
That is where we haven't got to.
The MC at the local level, when you want to hold him accountable, it becomes a problem. So Doc, you have said it all, and some have added. That for the causes, there's no point talking much about them because they are there, but it is the ability to hold the country together. Make sure that people feel that you have them at the heart. If it's not there, let them know it's not there, and they will believe in you. But when others think that they are more important than others, but we are all in the same country, that is where some of these things will be happening. Even though to a larger extent, that coup that they are celebrating is not also a panacea to their challenges. But when you are drowning in water, even you think the air can save you. Yeah. That is where we find ourselves as a people in West Africa. and it's only God who can save us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mujib. A few messages I'm receiving before I come to Mrs. Muktari. Kipo Elijah Bakari is saying the military interventions in West Africa is the effect of the nepotism, corruption, and hardship that we are engraved with by the bunch of irritants in quotes. Minor motives are articulated over major motives. He's always used that term. Okay, so good morning. Okay, so this is from Idi Gideon Mutare, who says, your noble panelists have spoken well, more especially my brother Mujib, for once. We need to appreciate the fact that I'm just reading. We need to appreciate.
So that you can't be nationalistic at all.
We need to appreciate the fact that lording over the people is different from serving the people. Democracy basically talks about the people and only people centered. If a leader feels so high over the people, he leads to their detriment. It will certainly result into negativity. It isn't only manipulation of tenure of regimes, but very bad governance can cause serious implications therein. The people's voice must be heard for the good of all. There are several other messages. Let me read. Ambassador Sampiale says, I've always disagreed with the military, with the general assumption that military has no place in democracy. In the first place, the military in a country are not second-class citizens. They live in a country and vote in any elections like all citizens. They pay their due taxes like all other citizens. The military suffer as any other citizen under bad governance. Where democracy turns into autocracy and sycophantic despotism, what solution is left for the helpless citizens? The military contains a diversified class of knowledge and experiences, sometimes far more than the jokers we find in democratic institutions. From our history is the conduct of politicians that call for military takeovers. Unfortunately, that under the current chairmanship of ECOWAS, the ECOWAS is falling apart. Gabriela Tete, okay, you're a good friend. She only sent the message. Mujib is very objective today. So much honesty in his submission. That's the message from Gabriela Tete to you. Kofi Adole says, when governance is not for the people, when economic policy is not targeted at creating opportunities for all, regardless of social groupings, when profligacy is the sole object for power, restlessness becomes unavoidable. Moody's has just downgraded Ghana to the lowest ebb ever in our history. That the coups we see are popular should warn Akufo-Addo and his ECOWAS AU colleagues to change course now, not later. In case ECOWAS's reactions are like template reactions. But I was going through the entire communique they issued after the summit here, and on all the situations, the same thing they say. If you go to the Burkina Faso situation, they condemn it, express concern over the continuous detention of President Roch Marc Christian Kabore. Remember Alpha Conde. In this regard, and subject to sanctions, the authority demands the unconditional release of President Roch Marc Christian Kabore. Continues to same thing, and this is what, and these are their decisions on Burkina Faso. Yeah. They said, "A, ECOWAS uphold the suspension of Burkina Faso from all ECOWAS institutions until the restoration of constitutional order. Calls on the military authorities to establish the transition institutions, adopt a transition calendar, and facilitate the return to constitutional order within the shortest time. C, instructs the Commission to ensure continuous engagement with new authorities through the establishment of a monitoring mechanism, including African Union and United Nations, with a view to accompanying the transition process." So it's a template. I can go through all of them for you. It's the same thing that they are saying in all of them. Kojo Chumbuafo says, "Sena, over many years, I warned Ghanaians that Akufo-Addo's rule of this country will be one of buccaneering, piracy, banditry, and kleptocracy. Which adjectives did I misplace? I hate to tell Ghanaians that I told them so, but then again I did." Okay, utterly. Okay. Madam Jazwa Muktari.
Well, thank you very much. I believe that previous speakers have actually outlined very clearly what we all agree is the problem with what is currently going on. I have no doubt in my mind that one of the biggest threats to democracy, particularly in Africa, currently, is our youth bulge. Africa has the youngest population in the world. It's a young continent within itself. At least 60% of Africa's population are under age 25. which is the age at which you actually come out of university. You are expecting opportunities to be available for you. You are expecting that your future will start immediately you graduate. Unfortunately, that is not what is happening across Africa. It is not just in West Africa, but it's also in the Sahel and other parts of this continent. I would hate to repeat what everybody else has already indicated very clearly. Look at the Mo Ibrahim Index for 2020. It clearly outlines the fact that all of the strategies in terms of governance have currently failed in Africa because of corruption and lack of transparency and accountability. Look at the Freedom Report. It tells you that most people in Africa are literally hopeless. They have no direction whatsoever, and they utterly do not trust their leaders. And then when you go down even to the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Center, they carried out a very extensive research in 2019, and they concluded that one of the challenges with our democracy currently is a lack of transparency and largely corruption. What exactly do you expect to benefit from a democracy? Largely all you expect is freedom, really. You expect that systems be put in place to support whatever it is that you expect. In any case, it is also our civic responsibility that actually allows us to exercise our votes in the course of a constitution. You know, sometimes I am totally not comfortable with conversations about challenges with our constitution per se. I think that even as the constitution stands, it has withstood the test of time. We've had it since 1999, practically till date, and it has served a very good purpose. I think the challenge is, it is us, the people. We lack courage, we lack candor. Sometimes we even shudder to challenge authority on the things they do that are totally wrong and unacceptable. Why would you go out there and elect a government, and then when they want to be elected, they actually promote themselves as being for the people, or that even if they are making mistakes or errors, they do so on the sides of the people? What are the rules and tenets of good governance? Is that there must be rule of law, there must be freedom of speech, that there must be power to everybody, that largely whatever amenities we all require to survive must at least be there, and that people should be seen to have equal opportunities. So when you have governments that are driven by cronyism, governments that are driven by family and friends, governments that are driven by nepotism, then you know that you have challenges. There's been a recent avalanche of challenges in terms of coup d'etats in and around West Africa. Surprisingly, the larger, more experienced coup-infected countries somehow appear to have stabilized over the period. But remember that research also posits that currently most democracies are struggling to survive, especially here in Africa. I don't think democracy we are practicing is any different from what pertains in other jurisdictions. Indeed, most of our constitutional dispensations are actually premised upon what we see in Western countries or Western democracies, which is what we all want to emulate. In terms of multi-party democracy, there can be no other form of it short of allowing everybody to have a voice. It's actually the reason why in Ghana, for example, one individual, probably with no party offices even across the country, can actually go to the Electoral Commission and register themselves as being a leader of a political party and be allowed to contest in a general election. Even sometimes you can tell that most of the tenets of that qualification have not been met, but the Electoral Commission will probably allow it because it is just in furtherance of our democracy. I think that most often than not, in Africa in particular, greed, avarice, corruption, a refusal even to allow for dissenting views has actually led us to where we are today. If the people realize that they have no voice, if the people realize that there are no opportunities for them, if the people suddenly realize even that the persons they have actually hitherto elected, who lived and ate with them, who visited them, who spent time. I mean, we remember in the course of our campaigns for elections every 4 years, you see political party heads eating in chop bars, walking in the markets, talking to market women, actually literally getting a feel of the common man on the street. Immediately we come into power, what do you see? Our car windows are tinted. We move in large convoys. We are accompanied by a retinue of military and police and also of other party aficionados who act as barriers between us and the same people who elected us into power. What do you then expect them to do? And listen here, most coup d'etats, even where they have failed, have been lauded by the same citizens who bring the democracies into power. You will find the common man still on the same street, chanting in support of whoever has taken over power. There must be a good reason, because there's a certain nexus within our lack of freedoms, our liberties, and of course the persons who proffer to give you the freedom back. So naturally you have a certain propensity towards going out there and supporting them. In any case, we used to have peer review mechanisms, especially in West Africa. I am yet to hear in recent times any conversations even about African leaders undertaking to peer review themselves. And like Sami said, when you wait for the coup to occur and then you try to take your steps back and try to introduce some rules, what rules are you interviewing? We have an African Union Charter, we have an ECOWAS Charter, we have a United Nations Charter, we even have a Security Council, and for the first time, the Security Council has even refused to admit motion about what to do as a way of intervening in countries where there have been coup d'etats. Note that the world is going through very uncertain times with a challenge to do with a pandemic. So nobody even has a military or monies available to go out there and stem these insurgents or all of these re-emergence of these coup d'etats. Indeed, ECOWAS itself, if you notice, even yesterday with all the conversations, nobody is actually saying that I'm going to deploy this number of men to come out there and ensure peace, or that I have enough resources to commit even to this exercise. What has happened to all of the resources of Africa as a continent? Our gold, our cocoa, our diamond, name it. Most of the natural resources that God has blessed this world with exist here in Africa. Most of the partitioning in the course of our colonial struggles have been largely because of this gift of our natural resources. How have these gifts benefited our people? Take Ghana, for example, where our government currently has debts of almost 388 billion outstanding. Imagine how much it would look like if you gave every household even some of this amount. We are told that each Ghanaian currently owes about 10,000 Ghana cedis and a little bit more.
12,000.
Perfect. What does that tell you? There is a certain hopelessness that is creeping into our system. In fact, some people have even questioned whether this type of democracy is actually working for us. In the course of seeking to be elected, we speak to winner takes all being bad for us. And I recall the Center for Democratic Accountability speaking largely about these things. There have been countries where they've even attempted a certain power sharing. What has been the outcome of all these things? How have these things benefited the people who need it most? Look, in health we are declining. In the economies we are declining. In infrastructure we are declining. In all the key facets that determine human capital, we are totally failing. And the biggest threat to our democracy right now is the lack of opportunity, complete listlessness in our young people. I jog on the Legon campus every Saturday morning. And this morning, as early as 5:45 a.m., a whole host of students are already in lecture theaters. And I saw them all in black and white. And this happened even last week. I thought, what would they be doing? So there's a huge overflow of students from the law school now going for lectures at the University of Ghana campus. Thousands of them on a Saturday morning. If you genuinely have a job, if there are opportunities for you, why would all of these people want professions that allow them to administer themselves in terms of employment and opportunities? Go to the police service, go to the military, see how promotions are done and along what lines. There is a certain seeming ethnocentricity even creeping into African politics. It is why suddenly Rwanda is a shining example. They have suffered the demerits of ethnocentrism and have vowed never to allow it to happen. So they work in a way that allows for a certain cohesion, and they have been consistent. We have probably come a long way. And of course, since 1963, when Togo opened this whole avalanche of coup d'etats, and Ghana has had its very fair share, so has Nigeria, everybody else. What have we done to totally remove or reduce those challenges that led to all these coup d'etats? At least we didn't see the 1966 coup. We don't know much about the subsequent ones, but at least immediately we will remember the one by Jerry Rawlings in 1981, for example. At least history is replete with information about the types of individuals from across the political divide who came out to ensure the success of that particular coup d'etat. Indeed, the 1992 Constitution owes all of its framework to that era. And of course, since then, we have had one of the longest periods of peace times here in Ghana under this particular constitution. I think that poverty, I think that lack of opportunity, I believe strongly that corruption is what is actually driving and fueling this renewed interest in coup d'etats in Africa, particularly in the sub-region. The reasons are very, very simple. If you have young people who have no opportunities, and remember, there are all these terrorist cells now developing. Burkina Faso is a fantastic example, where young people are being recruited into these terrorist groups because they have no jobs. There's actually nothing to do. They offer you some incentives, they offer you a certain level of freedom, they offer your family some opportunities. What do you expect young people to do? There's also some serious proliferation of arms and serious trades in arms. We've seen what has happened in Boko recently and the types of arms that are in the hands of private people. There are many of these stories across the sub-region, in terms of Chad, in terms of Mali, in the Sahelian region. Remember that in some of these countries even, the whole notion of the rule of law has totally broken down, failed completely. Travel to some parts of Congo and see, you'll be given heavy military to take you around just for normal business. Because even the persons who now are ruling no longer feel safe even with their people. And there's enormous marginalization of people across the world. And specifically in Africa, it's even worse. Travel outside of Greater Accra, outside of Ashanti region, go to some parts. Take the Savannah, the Northeast, the northern regions, go around there and see. Over the last 5 years, people's livelihoods have dwindled. The index of the poverty levels have totally worsened. And nothing is being done to reduce the suffering of the human being. These are matters that create a hotbed and become the bedrock on which most of these coup d'etats are built. And history is replete with all the stories that tell you why people will resort even to coup d'etats. History is also replete with reasons why currently most of our democracies, especially in Africa, are facing serious challenges and decline. It is actually instructive also that President Akufo-Addo, who actually touted the fact that over 1 million Ghanaians had elected him into office, has suddenly forgotten the things that he shared in common with all the people who elected him into office. The fufu that he used to eat in the chop bar, the sitting around the table where people were playing a draft all day, and of course the promises to create opportunities for everybody. Even the promise that the money was here and that the prior administration was just simply refusing to share it as they should have. It is what actually informed the promise about the $1 million per district.
Constituency.
And per constituency, but that's even worse. So currently ask yourself, how have all these promises served to improve the livelihoods of the people, even here in Ghana? But let us make no mistake that when you look at the post facto challenges to do with the aftermath of revolutions historically, of coup d'etats, of any type of insurgency, you must come necessarily to the conclusion that the democracy that we all advocate for is certainly the best. What we ought to start to do now is that let not African leaders wait until the challenges occur. Let them not sit idle and askance while individual leaders totally annihilate the same people who brought them into power, ostracize them, and then steal and plunder whatever is available to be shared. I think that challenges here, even in Ghana, with our economy, with all the social indexes, are probably still reasons why people take to the streets. I have no doubt in my mind that majority of our people believe that the best way to go is for us to ensure that we protect jealously and guard our nascent democracy. But even as we do so, we must remember that if people have no opportunities, if you allow corruption to destroy your economy, if you allow corruption to rape the same people that you promised to serve, if you allow corruption to deny people of their right even to have dissenting views, if corruption stops all forms of development, and above all, remember, one of the biggest reasons why we have this unemployment situation in Africa, and I would not single out Ghana, is the fact that corruption has totally depleted all of our resources. Please do a very quick analysis over the years of investments into our mining industry, of investments into oil and gas. And I remember that when we were in office and the Ghana Gas Company was being built, the challenges that we faced, even in Parliament. Today, it provides at least 50% of what we need in terms of gas and gas to power the power plants that we have. Take, for example, the challenges we have currently to do even with basic infrastructure. Remember that before the NDC came into power, the World Bank research had actually indicated that if Ghana was to improve on unemployment and improve upon most of the key social indices that were failing, we needed to build up on our infrastructure deficit. So you find that that administration focused largely on improving infrastructure. The idea was that once we have a certain renewed investment in infrastructure, it would create jobs, it would open up the country and create opportunities. Most countries were not built on the basis of the fact that they had strong men who would take up arms and overthrow a government. It is the soft things that you do to reduce the burden on your citizens that would allow them to continue to allow you to stay in power. Check the history of every coup d'etat. What are the reasons the leaders are given? They will tell you that it's because of inequalities, because of unfairness, because of a certain lack of interest in the lives of the poor citizens. And when you see the personal aggrandizement of our leaders, it tells you that they did not come to lead us because they were charitable institutions. In most cases, you don't even want to speak to the fact that they come largely born out of greed, maybe. When you listen to Ghana's situation today, make a very quick comparison between what we are hearing now and what we heard in 2016. Surprisingly, you hear your Minister for Finance now telling us that he'll be personally accountable even for how he spends the e-levy proceeds. What has happened to all the amounts that were lost? Judging by what the Auditor General is telling us, over 12 billion has been lost to parastatals. Half of that is what we are looking for from the e-levy. What has happened to the principles of transparency, of accountability? What is President Akufo-Addo himself saying as against what he said before he was elected into office? And when you have individuals leading countries such as what happened with Ouattara, coming and extending presidential terms in office, and you have other African leaders coming to show support, it means that the people no longer have anybody to call on. In fact, what it means is that ECOWAS had actually failed even in its attempt to supervise or peer review colleagues within the sub-region. I think that even the Bible says that when you have only 10 loaves of bread We should be able to share so that everybody can get what little is available. For as long as we face these inequalities, for as long as we have leaders who only come to personally enrich themselves, and this is a very nationalistic conversation that we are having. And I'm happy that this morning, even on your platform, it has taken the character of a certain patriotic approach, a certain condemnation of how our leaders lead us when they finally come into office. Look, leadership is what Africa is crying for. The type of leadership, the nature of leadership, a certain empathetic type of leadership. And you know, not because I serve President Mahama. I always tell people that sometimes I marvel at the level he would go to help the common man from his personal resources, even out of office. If every one of us would take up a certain responsibility, no matter what little we have, for those who do not benefit largely from the public spaces that we occupy, I am sure there will be enough to go around everybody. But for as long as we continue to drop on every index in terms of perception of corruption, what it means is that the monies that should be used to support the poor, to create opportunities for those who do not have them, and especially for those who will never find themselves in government, is what we are totally stealing, is what we are completely destroying, is what we are even wasting. And I think for me personally, what I find most unsettling about leadership, especially within our sub-region, is the waste. Waste by government appointees, waste by persons in authority, above all, the levels of chronism like we've never seen before. Only when we try our very best to build a society that is equitable will we be able to eventually do away with the reasons why people decide to take the gun and uproot legitimately installed governments. There can be no other reason. For as long as we don't address the social challenges. There's a gender ministry in Ghana, for example. Nobody knows where the minister is. There's a social protection bill currently crying to be admitted into parliament and passed, but there's no substantive minister. We have a minister for sanitation currently overseeing the activities of the gender ministry. Look at the challenges with sanitation in our country that forced us even to introduce the Ebola tax. How is such a minister going to have responsibility for social interventions? So it tells you that even in our country, most of the key indicators of how well a people are doing, nobody even has the data, have certainly not been met. And I'm telling you, take our story and move to Nigeria. Take our story and move to Liberia. Take our story to Sierra Leone. Take our story to Burkina Faso. Take it to Chad. Take it to all of these countries in Mali. You would find it's almost as if you're reading from the same book. Maybe in Ghana, we are always better because our leaders don't come out and slap us on the streets and kick us around and all of that. But even then, we've seen a few journalists who've had challenges with government. We've seen what has happened to Captain Smart over the last few weeks. When people's freedoms are stifled, when human rights no longer appear to be rights under democracy, the end result is what we are seeing. A re-insurgence, a re-emergence, a total lack of respect for democratic rules and tenets. And of course, the common man is hungry. And hunger is a basic human instinct. It can drive you to do all sorts of things. I think that African leaders should take their peer review mechanisms very seriously. I think that is where the AU, that is where the ECOWAS, and all these regional bodies are actually failing. Remember that in the past we used to have peace envoys. Where are they all today? I think currently that is just what we need. We need individuals, because I remember President Obasanjo in particular, when he left office, one of the consummate coup makers who became a real Democrat in his time, became like an example of peace for Africa. The Dr. Mohamed Emin Chambers was one of such individuals. Whenever there was turmoil anywhere, you would find him at the forefront. I think that these individuals must start to put pressure on African leaders to do what is right by their people. And it's only when we cure the stigma and disease of corruption that we can achieve true peace and tranquility in Africa. And of course, bring an end to all these schools.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And let me just do a few messages to conclude the discussion we're having on the coast in West Africa. A few of your messages, there are so many messages that are directed at Mujib still. Just as Godwin Fiadonu says, Mujib is my man of the day, and I believe God has given him heavenly wisdom. Some of the comments are so interesting, but thank you all. There's Alex Lexus who says, Mujib for sure has spoken for real. Our brother Mujib is also feeling the pinch. Awudu, okay, I think I read Awudu, I read Anefi. John Adoboli says, government is taking government business and giving it to individual politicians. Where will the youth get their employment after school? Mami also says, if it all start addressing issues like this man is doing, it will ease the tension in the country. All done MPP man. Niba Donyon says, it is this time that I see Boche carrying himself as CEO of an organization, extent that they even want to run the day-to-day administration of the organization. And Props Pagbai says, for the first time, let's all applaud Mujib, though he tried very much not to mention irresponsible, reckless. Chang now, Abdul Rahim says, Sena, did the Togo president attend the ECOWAS conference in Ghana?
Yes.
Dominic Loco says, in fact, I've never liked Mujib in his previous submission, but he has won my admiration today. Okay. There's Richie 80 says, Ghana Army is watching on the sideline, wondering if it's time for them to play Ampe or Ludo. Niba says, the fact of the matter is our elders have failed with the youth. I've never witnessed coup, but the way things are happening, let's try it and see. Hey. Okay, I think I didn't go through that one well. There's Abna Pokiaka who says, oh, okay, what's an issue with Doc? He says, how can you say Nkrumah's school was justified? Babusia's school was unjustified. I think what Doc said was that, no, I think that what Doc said was that he feels that whilst you're talking about the CIA issue, you also miss some underlying issues that may have led to the coup. I think that was what he said. He never said the Nkrumah coup was justified. There's Karim Kumpielim says, please, Sena, tell Madam Mutari I admire her so much and wish to meet her. Okay, you are in Tamale, so I think one of these days you'll catch her somewhere. Yairaya says, when the ECOWAS leader used stylish coup to stay in power, what do you expect from member countries? There's Besevi Victor, so that's what lawyer Sami Jemfi, his brilliance is incomparable. He's a real lawyer and a communicator. Tijani Amingo says, some people know the true power, but because of their stomach, sometimes they hide it. Well done, Mujib. Karim again. So there are several short messages that you're sending to us, but we have to move on to the next discussion. It's 11 o'clock, which means we have an hour to go through the next discussion, which deals with the matter of the e-levy, the never-ending issue. I will start with Doc once again on this matter.
You also stop discussing it, so I will let end.
Well, it's a matter that interests me, so why not? Let me start with Doc.
Sena, this is where I'm going to be slaughtered. Oh, okay. Okay, I'll start off by saying that I'm a 30% taxpayer. So everything I say should be taken to that context. Yes, and I'm going to say that, as Muji said, I traveled last time I was here. I told you where I had been. I traveled to Ahafo, and then I traveled to all the major northern towns. Savannah, Northeast, Northern Region, Upper East, Upper West. And for what I saw, there was nothing to be written home about. So, I think about 50 years when my dad was a civil engineer or a regional engineer, and we're going around these towns. And I even stayed in one of the Ahafo villages for a year. So we went there just to see if things had changed. And they had rather retrogressed. So my last submission was that what we are collecting in this country is not enough. What we are collecting as taxes in this country is not enough. We need to look for a way to bridge that gap. Whatever way we look for should be fair. And so maybe finally at the end of my submission, I will venture a solution which may be of help to the finance minister. Because I haven't come here to praise the government or to bury the e-levy. I want to look at practical issues. And with that, as I've begun, we need to raise revenue to bridge the gap. Okay, in my research, my PhD research, I realized that in 1919, Ghana had the opportunity, the Gold Coast. That's when Gajisbek came up with the first development plan for a third world country. That's where we got our Chimota, Kolebu. But what was the major project was the Northern Railway. How to develop the railway from Accra to the north, so that the north will feed the south, while the south is exporting the gold and other things. At that time, it was he needed 25 million pounds, just 25 million pounds then. And he proposed an increase in export duty tax. That time, the British merchants fought him. He fought him, so that 25 million he couldn't raise. Thankfully, we got our Kolebu and our Chimota and others. But what he felt then, even though recently I heard people challenging Gajisbek's development theory, those people didn't know what they were talking about. We don't know. I can stand everywhere and challenge them. At that time, what he faced, that was the best for the country. And for a foreigner to think of a country like that, and we having failed over so many years, because that railway, if you've been to Côte d'Ivoire, you would realize the importance of that railway. If you are in Burkina Faso, you can buy goods from Côte d'Ivoire the next day, because when the railway arrives, everybody troops there for food. And then from what is produced in the north ends up in Abidjan the next day. So you don't have a lot of people trooping to the capital as we do here. Now everybody is trooping to Accra because the colonial masters, they had a reason, because they came and supported their merchants. So they stayed along the coast, and wherever they found resources to easily export. But then we took over our nation. We should have revisited that development plan and ensure that we integrated the North properly. If I'd heard about a police convoy, but I had not witnessed it until I tried to go to Hamile from Wa, because I was collecting data for a research on Ghana's culture. So I had to go to all the corners of Ghana, and I went to Hamile. On my way back, about 6:30, I was stopped by the police. You can't move. You have to wait for a convoy. I said, this modern Ghana, 6:30. I waited for about over 30 minutes, and the police officer drove us to the nearest police barrier before we drove on. Just because you couldn't even see a light pole in between that, and that is where, and even the telephones wouldn't work in that area. So the armed robbers have taken over the area and then robbing people. So my last submission, I said, while we are raising or while we are challenging this form of raising or increasing our revenue, we should think about those people that we've left behind. We are sitting in Accra, we've benefited from education, so we are earning some income that we can afford medical care, education for our children. But what we need to do is to ensure that we raise enough revenue to develop the entire nation, so that, as we've been saying, nobody will be left behind. Everybody will have his or her fair share of the development that we aspire for in a modern society. So with the development levy, as I said last time, that I could say maybe it was the quest for innovation. So that is an innovation, but then every tax must be fair. See, we need to ensure that it is fair. If it is to rope in the so-called informal sector, then it should be for the informal sector. So this is where I was talking about the solution. We have a situation where a lot of people do not file their tax returns. Okay? So if you want to come up with a system like this, you can even come up with a way of getting those taxpayers having their tax levy refunded to them. The existing taxpayers, when they file their returns, they can state the amount of tax levies they've suffered, and then that tax deducted from their final tax. In that case, we will say that nobody is paying double tax, because, like I said, I'm a 30% taxpayer. I cannot say that because we are going to introduce the e-levy, I will not use it, because I realize the convenience of transferring money, sitting in your office. You don't have to go to the bank, and you get so many things done. But then we have a situation where people do not file their returns. So how come the finance manager left that out, tying the two? So you are paying so much taxes, and in my quest to rope in the informal sector, I've come up with a tax, but it's blanket as it stands, because somebody is paying his fair share of tax, and it's because I cannot target those who are not paying taxes. That person has to suffer. So I find it as fair to ensure that you refund the e-levy of those who pay taxes in the formal sector, and then rest with those in the informal sector, because we say we've characterized our informal sector as the poor, but they are not. When you go and see the flashy cars and the sort of transactions that they are engaged in on daily basis, you will realize that it's unfair for them to be left on their own, while the few that pay their taxes and file their returns are pursued on a regular basis. When even I was even saying last time, now when you go to funerals, donations of 30,000, 20,000. I mean, if I were the GRA boss, I would just send somebody, and the person will put a table there as you're announcing our list, and pursue the people. Because gift taxes, donations, we have to have a limit. We have to have a limit. You look at the weddings, the amount of money that are being spent. And these same people, most of them are operating in the informal sector. Those who have invested in formal businesses, they cannot afford that sort of lifestyles. But you've left those in the informal sector enjoying everything, and they are not being pursued. Somebody may say, in quotes, it's out of sheer laziness. Because if the informal sector, if we think deeper, we can get them. Can get them. So if you are saying there's something being bandied about that 75% of Ghanaian population is not paying taxes. If that is true, how could we allow that to be? So I think we should look at the need for development. Muji was saying something, but I think, Muji, you missed the opportunity, and I didn't want to help you. Because of the dualization, you see, I traveled to Kumasi a lot. And one day, I just realized that they had opened the, from Pokuasi, you can drive all the way to Apedra now. And that place, that Apedra to Suhum, was terrible. So on my way back, I timed. It took me 5 minutes from Apedra to Suhum. And that could take 30 minutes or 40 minutes previously. And I said, that is all the people need in this country. You know, the developed countries develop quickly because of productivity. You have people traveling that trajectory of how many kilometers? I don't know, but 5 minutes, if 5 minutes could do it, why do it in 45 minutes? You have goods being transported, you have people attending to serious businesses. So if we have those projects, and also the railway to the north, that is my darling, the day that is done, I think I've achieved all that I need for my country. So if that can be done by increasing taxes, I think that should be done. But whatever means we use to raise that revenue should be fair. Okay? And then also, we need to look at the income and wealth distribution. We have most people, I wouldn't say maybe the powerful, ending up with so much wealth and they are not being taxed. Then we, the commoners, trying to do our businesses or working, we pay that much in taxes. So we have to find a way of ensuring that there's a fair distribution of income and wealth in the country, because that is another thing. That is another cause of instability. Because if I'm sitting in Tumu somewhere where I cannot even travel to Paga because my road is not done, and you are somebody is living somewhere driving the flashy car on the asphalted road, we are all from the same country. So if we ensure that we raise enough revenue to develop our country, everybody will be happy. So as I said, I'm not here to bury or ask for the approval of the e-levy as it stands now. But I think some amendments can be done to it, so that if you are roping in the informal sector, as you said you were doing, you should concentrate on that. And whatever those informal sector pay should be refunded to them when they file their tax returns. And I think that should be a fair solution. If the finance minister takes that on, that will add to the attraction of the levy. But that I'm just submitting this as someone with development interests of Ghana and nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. I'll go to the same move again. I'll go to Sami the Inferior Square shortly. But before I do that, David Sena says, good morning. Mujib for once is being real. But tell him, if his MPP government and president accept that Ghana's resources should be shared equitably, the university lecturers and other Ghanaians will also be sympathetic. President Nana Akufo-Addo should stop bathing in the air and reduce corruption in his government, among other things. Then things would improve. This is Prince Henry from Koforidua, who says, I feel very sad when I see people defending the Nana Bawumia-led NPP government on the controversial levy, as if when it's passed, it will exempt them. The levy will be paid like the way we are buying high price of fuel. The future is pregnant, he says. And let me end with Alhaji, who says, if you have, okay, he goes back to the last topic. If you have an incompetent ECOWAS chairman in West Africa, what do you expect to happen under that leadership? It seems Zanado and his cronies are not getting the happenings in the country. Today, E-Levy is Ghana's second Jesus that will take us to the promised land in heaven. What a leadership. God bless NDC. God bless Ghana. Regards to all comments. That's Lagbaja. Send that from Accra.
Yeah, Sena, yes, last week we had this same conversation about the obnoxious E-Levy bill, which is currently before the August House of Parliament. And I've also had the privilege of discussing the same subject on different media platforms. And throughout those discussions, I have maintained and still maintain that the E-Levy is a draconian, obnoxious, regressive, and punitive revenue measure, which, if approved, will escalate the excruciating hardships Ghanaians are already reeling under in Ghana. And so for me, it is a no-no. It is unacceptable, and all of us, irrespective of our political affiliations, must do everything we can within our power to kill this killer E-Levy. And I want to make that point very, very forcefully today. Sena, first of all, this E-Levy introduction is a monumental betrayal of the trust of Ghanaians. And we made this point on last week's edition. Because you see, when politicians are canvassing for the mandate of the people, the mandate of the electorate, the promises they make must matter. Look, when you make promises to the electorate on the basis of which you get elected into office, you must deliver on those promises. You cannot say A to the electorate for their vote, and few months down the line do the very opposite of A. That is unacceptable. That is unacceptable. Look, before the start of this show, you played a couple of tapes, and one of those tapes was that of His Excellency the Vice President Alhaji Bawumia. It was an interview he had on Accra-based Peace FM sometime in August 2020, few months ago. And he was asked a direct question about this E-Levy proposal. And his answer was categorical and emphatic that mobile money should not be taxed in Ghana because it is used by the poorest of the poor. And that taxing mobile money will impoverish the already burdened Ghanaian. I was not the one who said that. This was the head of the economic management team of the MPP speaking at the time. So, what has changed, Sena? That in few months after the 2020 election, few months after this statement was made by Bawumia, this ruling MPP government has now decided that mobile money should be taxed. Why? Is it because now all customers of mobile money, all users of that platform have turned into rich people? What has changed? You see, so the deception, the betrayal of the trust of Ghanaians, the betrayal, the breach of the NPP social contract with the people, as is being displayed in this conversation about the E-Levy, for me is sickening. Very, very sickening. And I'm hoping that maybe my good brother Mujib will be able to provide some answers as to why this sudden U-turn. Okay, because mobile money was a crime in the opinion, mobile money tax was a crime in the opinion of Dr. Bawumia in August 2020. But in 2022, is the brilliant policy ever to be thought of by any government by them. And see how they are jumping over themselves desperately to pass this tax. I cannot stand this hypocrisy, this double standards. And that's why I maintain that Dr. Bawumia must speak on this matter of e-levy. We want to know his position. He's still the head of the economic management team. What is his position on this matter? Okay, that for me is very important. Either than that, what he's doing is that he's cementing his reputation as the biggest flip-flopper, the biggest, deceitful politician, the most deceitful politician in this country today. So that's the first point. Secondly, I have said, and I continue to maintain, that the e-levy is not a tax. It is theft. You see, I gave you an account proverb last week, and I'll repeat it for emphasis. The account says, the fact that you are hungry doesn't mean you should eat with both hands when you are giving food. So yes, Doc, we need revenue. We may have challenges with revenue mobilization. There are so many things that we may want to do as a country that we may not have the money for. But not everything is taxable. That is why even VAT, which is an expenditure and consumption tax, has exceptions. You understand? And like I explained to you last week, if you look at our tax regime, you have 5 main forms of taxes. Income tax that comes by way of corporate income tax on the profit of businesses. Personal income tax that comes in the form of income tax on the salaries and wages of individuals. Then we have the VAT, which is an expenditure tax you pay as you spend on taxable goods and services. Okay, then we have tariffs which are only imposed on imported items, import duty. Then we have levies, and then we have excise duty, which is imposed on petroleum products, from cigarettes, alcohol, and other products that are deemed to be harmful and all that. In Ghana, we do not have a tax on savings. In Ghana, we don't tax investment and capital. And so if you have a tax that is going to be imposed on savings and capital and investments, it doesn't matter that we need money. That is not a tax. It is stealing. Look, when I am paid my salary at the end of the month, say 5,000 Ghana cedis, which would have already been taxed, what would be paid me would be the net, okay, income less income tax. If I decide to save that money in my bag, in my suitcase, my wardrobe, or under my pillow, I won't pay a tax on that. If I go to the bank and I decide to deposit that money in my account, I won't pay a tax on that. But if I take that money to a vendor and I tell the mobile money vendor, transfer this money into my account, I will pay money. I will pay a tax on that saving. My mobile money is another form of my wallet or my purse or my bag or my bank account. It is called an electronic wallet. If I am transferring money into that account, which is my saving, why must I be taxed? Where in the world are savings taxed? Then, if I decide to transfer my capital, I go to a bank for a loan of say 100,000 Ghana cedis. I decide to invest that, say, in the supplies of maize. So I transfer that money to somebody in Bono through a bank transfer. That is my capital. I've not made any profit on that yet. If I make profit, you can charge me income tax for that. If I make profit and I decide to use part of the profit to go and buy a shoe, you can charge me VAT on that. But merely transferring my capital, which may even be a loan, and loans are not taxed, will attract an e-levy of 1.75% or now 1.5%. Why? So on that 100,000, I'll pay 1,500, 15 million. If the amount is huge, like 1 million cedis, you are paying 17,500 or now 15,000. 150 million old Ghana cedis. how much will be left of that capital after it is transferred for on 10 occasions? Government would have depleted, eroded your capital. So this thing we are talking about is not a joke. It is not a tax. It is an intelligent way of stealing from the people, and that is what frustrated and desperate governments do, insensitive and callous governments do, and that is why they must be stopped. Doc says something which I find very profound. He said that taxes must be fair. It is right. It is a basic principle of taxation. Okay, and so if you have an e-levy, there is nothing fair or equitable about it. Doc, if I go to a supermarket and I buy products and I'm given a bill, the bill will have VAT as part of it. I'll pay NHIL. At first it was 2.5. Now there is a COVID levy on it, so I'll pay 3.5. You understand? I'll pay get fund of 2.5, and all those taxes will be there on the bill. If I'm paying by cash, I will not be charged any tax on that medium of payment. If I decide to give a company check, that is another form of payment. I won't pay any tax. If I decide to transfer money from my Momo account to the Momo account of that shop, I will be, not only will I be charged VAT on the items, I will be charged an e-levy on the medium of payment. Why? Why must we be punishing people who decide to help Ghana build a cashless society? Why must we be punishing people for subscribing to digital platforms when we want to promote digitalization? You are just killing the digitalization drive of the country. You are taking us back. Already, even before the implementation of this policy, the volumes of mobile money transactions have come down significantly. The Bank of Ghana reports about a 3 billion Ghana cedis reduction in Momo transactions, even before the tax. You are going to kill that industry and render many people jobless. So this thing we are talking about, we are not saying these things because we are NDC people. Right? We are talking about this because it will hurt the country. It will hurt all of us. This is thievery. If the NPP were in opposition and we attempted to introduce a tax like this, there was no way they were going to support it. Even the 17.5% VAT we introduced on the fees of chargeable on mobile money transactions and other financial transactions, they oppose it. That one was imposed on the fees. So you transfer 1,000 cedis, MTN charges you a fee of 10 cedis. Mahama says MTN pay VAT on that 10 cedis. The MPP said, no way this will impose hardships on Ghanaians. Now you have moved beyond imposing a tax on the fee. You are actually imposing a tax on the money of the consumer. How can anybody defend this? So this is not right. I've heard that they intend to review it, but you see, Sena, any review.
Please, Muji. I'll come to you.
Oh, it's my brother. It's nice.
Because I needed to learn so that
I want him to also talk on the profit. So in all this, if the person also makes profit out of the transaction and business and decide to lodge that money still in his wallet or put the money under his pillow,
the person would have paid income tax on the profit. You can charge the person income tax on his profits. But after the person has paid income tax on his profit, you cannot charge him another tax on that already taxed income. That is multiple taxation.
Which is wrong.
Which is wrong. That is multiple taxation.
A lot of people go.
So if you get it back as a former sector operator, if you get the money back,
I'll come to that issue. But you see, multiple taxation is also frowned upon in any jurisdiction. So even when I buy goods, like the supermarket example I gave you, I've already paid taxes on that. Then you charge me e-levy on the taxes again, tax on tax. Where is that done in the world? That's double taxation. And after you have charged me income tax on my income, if anytime I decide to transfer that money, so my income is 1,000 cedis, I'm transferring 200 cedis to my mother for medicine because she's sick, and I am taxed. I'm transferring 500 to my brother who is in school to buy books, and I am taxed. Any transfer I make, it is wrong. Again, I have raised issues about the timing of the introduction of this policy. You see, we must look at this issue of e-levy within a certain context. All is not well with this country. We are not living in normal times at all. And we know that. We are living in very hard times, very tough times. As we speak, a gallon of diesel and petrol is almost 34 Ghana cedis. This government picked it at 16 cedis in 2016. In only 5 years, it has galloped to 34 cedis, a nominal increase of 18 Ghana cedis. We picked it at 5 cedis in 2008 and took it to 16 cedis in 2016, a nominal increase of 11 cedis in 8 years. They have done a nominal increase in the price of a gallon of diesel and petrol of 18 cedis in only 5 years. Last year alone, the price of a gallon of diesel went up by 9 cedis. This year alone, it has gone up by more than 3 Ghana cedis. And it's only been 35 days in 2022. Look at the trend. And you know the ripple effects that fuel prices have on the prices of all products and commodities in the market. People are struggling. Check the dollar rate today. It is 6 cedis 80 pesos. Even in some forest bureau, 6 cedis 90 pesos. Look at how that is eroding profits and the capital of businesses. All is not well. Look at how that is leading to astronomical increases in the prices of commodities. You know that the commodities on our market, 90% of that is imported. Look at how that is impacting on the pockets and on the lives of Ghanaians. Look at the taxes. Only in 2021 alone, COVID levy on VAT, COVID levy on NHIL, baller tax on fuel, energy sector levy 20 pesos on a liter of diesel and petrol, energy sector levy of 18 pesos on every kilogram of gas. Look at all these taxes. Financial sector cleanup tax of 5%. Look at all that. This year alone, they are increasing fees and charges by 15%. Do you know that? And so from the cradle to the grave, every government service you seek, the fee you pay for that is going up by 15%. Your birth certificate fees, your death certificate fees, your mortuary fees, your driver's license fees, your passport fees, your roadworthy certification fees, your school fees as a student in a public university and public nursing training institution, a public college of education. All that is going up by 15%. And it is at this time that this callous government wants to introduce this punitive and regressive, so-called tax, which I call theft. Then apart from the timing of it, okay, is the attempt by this government to punish the ordinary Ghanaian for their own recklessness and incompetence. Look, the economy, now, Ghana's economy now, Sena, we all know, has collapsed. If anybody were in doubt that our economy has collapsed, I'm sure that doubt would have been cleared by the latest Moody's rating of Ghana's economic outlook. CAA1, unprecedented in the history of this country. What does that mean? What that means is that the investor community has lost confidence in our ability to meet our debt obligations. They don't have confidence that we can stabilize and service our debts again. Nobody wants to lend us money. We have lost access for the first time to the international capital markets. We can't go on the Eurobond market to issue Eurobonds again. Nobody will lend us money on the capital markets. This is scandalous. This is a disaster. We are in crisis as we speak now. We don't have an economy. And because of that, we must borrow on the domestic market for even to meet our basic needs. And borrowing on the domestic market under the current circumstances is very expensive and leads to the crowding out of the private sector. That is the economic malaise we currently find ourselves in. But why is that so? Is it because of COVID? No. Because none of our neighbors are experiencing this kind of economic crisis, even though COVID was a pandemic and they all suffered it. None have recorded a budget deficit of more than 6%. From Nigeria to Cote d'Ivoire to Togo, we recorded an unprecedented budget deficit of 15.7% in 2020. None have recorded debt to GDP of more than 72%. We are doing 83% debt to GDP, according to Fitch. Why is that so? Because in the name of winning in the 2020 elections desperately, this government engaged in reckless expenditure, which created a huge hole in our finances, and which they had to finance with reckless borrowing. And most of those borrowed funds went into consumption. And so today, our public debt has increased from 120 billion as of December 2016 to 344.5 billion as of November 2021. This excludes the loan they took with Get Fund, 2.4 billion. It excludes The energy sector debt, what they securitize ESLA for, 9.3 billion. It excludes Sino Hydro, what they have collateralized our bauxite for, over 600 million cedis. This is how much, this is the debt we are talking about. Today, Moody's is saying that our total revenue, half of our total revenue is spent on one thing, interest payments. Today, out of the total revenue projection of 100.5 billion that we are seeking to rake in 2022, almost 50 billion on that will be spent on just servicing our debt. When we are done on that and we pay workers wages and salary, which is another 36 billion, the money is finished. We don't even have enough left for statutory payments of 31 billion. We need to borrow for that. We don't have anything left for capital expenditure of 16 billion. We have nothing left for goods and services, 9 billion. We need to borrow. So you have created this problem and you must face the consequences. You can solve this problem. That solution doesn't lie in the e-levy. That solution lies in cutting down on expenditure, cutting down on profligacy, corruption, and wastage, reducing tax exemptions, be innovative about taxation, progressive taxation by looking at the extractive sector and other sectors that you can mobilize revenue from. And please, you see, Doc, the problem with this country is not inadequate revenue. They say that, oh, in Ghana, so many people don't pay taxes, and that is why we need to bring the e-levy. It is not true. In Ghana, everybody pays taxes. If you are talking about income tax and those formal forms of taxation, that is one thing. But we all pay indirect taxes. We all pay VAT. Anybody who buys any taxable good or service pays VAT. We all pay VAT. So you can't say we don't pay taxes. And if you want to increase income tax, the way to do that is not to introduce this kind of e-levy. It is to create sustainable job opportunities for your people. When people earn income, then you can tax them. When people are able to invest in businesses and they make profit, then you can tax their incomes. But when you boast about creating 750,000 jobs under planting for food and jobs, and we go and check, and those 750,000 jobs are bad day jobs, which you are classifying as jobs, how can you increase income tax? So we all pay taxes. The problem is not inadequate taxes. In 4 years, President Mahama had access to 86 billion tax revenue. In 4 years, President Akufo-Addo minus 2021 had access to tax revenue of 156 billion. In 4 years, we had access to oil revenue of 6 billion. Under the Mahama administration, they in 4 years have had access to oil revenue of 20.6 billion minus 2021. In 4 years, we had access to borrowed funds of about 84 billion. They have access to over 230 billion. Where are all these monies? What have they spent those monies on? At least for our borrowings, you can see tangibly the projects we invested in education, in health, in roads, in all facets of our lives. What have they used their money for? Not even one district hospital, not even one secondary school, not even one regional hospital. What projects are they doing with that? And you come and tell us that you want more taxes. In total revenue, we have already given you more than 450 billion already. Without e-levy, what have you used the money for? In 2019, before COVID, tax revenue was 43.9 billion. In 2020, with COVID, we had more tax revenue, 45.3 billion. We exceeded our tax target, our tax revenue target. Okay. In 2021, with a tax revenue target of 55 billion, we have already exceeded that one too. And we are projecting, I'm just landing, we are projecting to get over 80 billion. So the problem is not inadequate taxes. The problem is the wastage, the misplaced priority, the mismanagement. And finally, I want to conclude by saying that posterity has shown that President Mahama was wrong when he said that he was not a magician. President Akufo-Addo and President Bawumia and the NPP are now showing that President Mahama is a magician.
Do you have to press?
He's a magician because Vice President Bawumia. He is a magician because, according to President Akufo-Addo, without e-levy and the NPP, without the e-levy, you can't have free fertilizer. Without e-levy, you can't have roads. Without e-levy, you can't have schools. That's what they are saying. They are saying if you don't pay e-levy, they can't give you jobs. But without e-levy, President Mahama gave cocoa farmers free fertilizer for 4 years. Without e-levy, he started 124 secondary schools, the construction of that, and completed 46 of them and commissioned them. Without e-levy, we saw the hospitals he built, the markets and the airports. Time will not allow me to go into those details. And so what I'm saying is that with prudent management, okay, with government getting its priorities right, we can't turn things around and avoid some of these punitive and regressive taxes, which only come to punish the people. It doesn't lead to revenue, an increase in revenue mobilization. It only comes to destroy businesses, okay, and deter people from even investing so that you can make revenue from that as a country. And so they should withdraw it and not just review the tax rates, but review the whole tax policy, okay, by looking at its very rationale and nature. That is what they need to do. Okay. Then we can have a meaningful conversation.
Thank you. Before I come to Mujib, just one message. This is Seidu who says, Sena, this is the irony. If Ghanaians don't pay taxes, how could the GRA consistently not only meet their target but exceed same? What parameters are you to set annual tax targets? Isn't it the identified taxpayers? The issue has to do with setting our priorities right by cutting down expenditure and reducing waste by government officials.
Yeah. Look, thank you. I've listened to my brother, but as usual, it's an opportunity to them to say whatever they want to say. But Doc, it's still the same. If we still want to get to where we want to get to, it's about the Ghanaian economy and where we find ourselves now as a country and how do we get there. Look, we have all lived in this country, we are here. The Ghana economy didn't just start today. And we know, today, if you go and take the records of former President Mills to Mahama, you go take the records of former President Kufuor and then President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, you point to see the fundamentals and the figures. But talk, we can say collectively, cumulatively, whether good or bad, look at where we are at the moment. But I don't sometimes want to go so direct, but I'll ask few friends and I'll ask Same whether by the time former President Mahama was exiting government, all was well, the economy was good, the fundamentals were strong and good, that could have just saved us certain difficulties in this country. And I remember, if I don't remember anything, to the extent at a point we were told that the meat has finished, now leaving the bones.
That statement was made in 2013 after the implementation of single spine. The context is important.
But it's very, very important. Thank you. But the reality on the matter is that we are where we are today. He said we have borrowed so much money, but we can't show what we have done with the money. That question is right, Sam. But what some of the monies you also borrowed, you know that you were not able to pay, and you couldn't have paid those monies before you exited office. And some of the projects that you undertook at that time, which is undisputable, were not fully financed and paid before you exited office. And we all agree here that governance is a continuation. Somebody who inherited you will have to pay those loans. Somebody who inherited you will have to pay those loans. Sena, we had that conversation here in 2017, getting to early 2018. It was difficult, Doc, when you go to airport residential where Get Fund office is located. You know it's so you see the fleet of contractors parked around. It was for what? It was the one payment. Government owed them that government is not paying them. And by then we had only been 1 hour, one and a half hour old in office. So most of the projects that were undertook in this country were NDC projects. But of course, the current government has to pay those contractors because the project is for the state and it is the state that award them the contract. So certain critical decisions have to be taken to be able to alleviate and assuage the suffering of these contractors. So the measures were taken. So, but that is how it is. So when all revenues are collected and you can owe and you say you won't pay, if you don't have the money, you don't have it, but it's a debt that is lying there. Eventually, it has to be cleared. So, I mean, today we are using part of the money to pay the interest and the loans and the interest, and using part of the proceeds to undertake development projects in this country. Doc just referred. I didn't want to go there, but I know the construction that is ongoing on the Kumasi stretch and many other parts of this country that construction is going. You know it, bro. You know it. But the reality of the matter is that when the opportunity presents, fine. But let's come specifically to e-levy. You have enumerated so many things, but you also know everywhere in the world that is the source of government revenue to develop. Senior, that is, when you go, that is what you are taught, taxation. What is it? What is the purpose? And it's true, you say you have to look at it, whether it's progressive, it qualifies the canons of taxation. But we also have experts in the system. But you see, when it suits them, they are happy jumping on the roof. You promising the people of Ghana, maybe I always, one day you will be confronted with the realities. I hope you are getting the argument. Well, we were saying that government has a plan. It has promised the people. How do we achieve that? I hope you are getting the argument. But you must also, where will government get revenue to be able to carry on all these things? So you are against levy, but the NDC as a political party consciously is not providing any alternatives. You have, now I'm coming. No, you did. Let me tell you. But you also face similar challenges when you knew that it has all long been held that the revenue mobilized in this country is not always enough to meet the targets. And this one is not only MPP or NDC. That has always been the cry of every government. When you were in power, were you able to succeed and do whatever you want to do? No. Even President Kufuor couldn't do that. But you didn't also spare the people of Ghana on taxing them. Nobody, look, I leave politics, but I have not seen any government that come and say, I'm reducing taxes. Or for this particular period of time, maybe we introduce taxes. We'll leave it there. So where do you expect money? Where do you get money to develop the country?
I said the TC can also come there. Taxation to production. What's your promise? You've forgotten all that.
You see, so, but that is the but for the e-levy, there is, bro, you see how, where we have got into, and I would have wished that, like, would have been able to rally ourselves and the country together, get consensus long even before now to be able, but we all didn't like what happened in Parliament, and we are not praying it will happen again, but still we are not out of it because the bill be withdrawn, but it will be submitted to Parliament for consideration and approval. So let's pray. But the truth of the matter is, when you are trending, you have to be cautious, because today I listen to Sammy very well.
How I wish they were listening to you.
I listen to you, but that everybody, see, I remember under President Kufuor, when, you know, that time the petrol, politics was high on the agenda, and I recall the CJA at a point, Aglukosi Bradeko, who go to Makola with their blackboard and chalk and be calculated the people of Makola, how taxes have been put in there to cause them suffering. But eventually, others have to come out and face the realities and apologize to the people of Ghana. Because I wasn't there, I didn't know. But now I have been there, I have known the realities. So it can go that way. So let's move on.
Why are you not apologizing?
I think we want to end.
No, but now brother. So me,
we should ask you. Which of your brothers?
No, I didn't hear what Madam said.
Why are you not apologizing for the things you said in 2016?
No, but be specific. Don't generalize. What's up on taxation? But that is the truth. But you know, specifically, you can't develop without taxation. That is why taxes. So where is the concept of tax? Do you have money when maybe tomorrow you are there, you can develop Ghana without taxation?
No, you
can't. You think that e-levy is an opportunity you have just condemned, but at least offer some solutions. What is the way forward?
I said review tax exemptions. I spoke about cutting
expenditure. But tax, it is true that experts have said that tax exemption is too much. It's time to look at, and even leakages is something we have to look at. But that is also, but this is not, it has been with us, and we have been crying that what can we do to stop the leakages of government revenues in this country? So, I mean, just didn't start today. Looking at the Auditor General report, it didn't start today.
Okay.
But did you do that? I hope you are getting
time.
When I came back in 95 and people were fighting over the VAT, I was one of the few to say that was good tax then. They fought and it was withdrawn.
Yeah.
And then
but later they brought it.
Came back at a reduced rate. And that is when we started having the levies. So the levy you are saying is not a tax. it was a way of bringing the VAT to 17.5% as originally planned. So the levy is a tax. Just because we found ourselves in challenging the incumbents. And then things turn.
But what's interesting?
They felt that the dog.
Yes.
You see, let's do the politics, and they are aware that when all these things go through, we know where they are. And it's clear. We have to look at the road sector. Jobs creation and unemployment is very critical in Ghana today, and you know why we have to get there. So I hope you are getting the argument. So why should they allow that to happen? So with all these things you have mentioned, you have enumerated, but before you were there, it wasn't a gold. We also know the challenges that we face under NDC. We know the challenges. We have not forgotten of the challenges. And if you want, I can mention them to you. And you are aware of that. So today, why are you pretending as if, oh, then this government is sensitive? Oh, man. Anyway, politics.
This message was sent by Baba Musa. He says that Akufo-Addo's government wants ordinary Ghanaians to make more sacrifices by coughing up our little incomes and earnings to pay more taxes. However, Akufo-Addo and his appointees, on the other hand, continue to exhibit wanton opulence and extravagance. Citizens see their president, who travel with 50 to 60 vehicles convoy, which is fueled by their taxes. Yet many of these taxpayers are struggling to pay their daily trotro fares to either go to their workplace or markets. Meanwhile, the executive expects the citizens to make more sacrifices in the name of economic difficulties by paying more taxes. That's the dilemma most citizens find themselves in. For example, the already burdened citizens live around neighborhoods of many of the appointees and members of the executives. They see the daily lifestyles of government, appointees, as well as Akufo-Addo. They see the opulence, extravagance, and ostentatious living styles of Akufo-Addo and his appointees. Citizens see their president, who has deliberately abandoned the official presidential jet his predecessors were using, which is in pristine condition anyway, and he opts for £16,000 per hour luxury jet for all foreign trips. Yet the same person expects Ghanaians to make more sacrifices. If the government wants the citizens to make more sacrifices, then he must start from Akufo-Addo and his elephant-sized appointees. That's coming from, I think these are two short messages from Kojo Chumbuafo. Says, Sena, yentuya o yentuya. Now they are asking what our alternative is. Let me quote their own DH Mensa. Get out and go. When we come, we'll reveal our alternatives. That is from Kojo Chumbuafo, by the
way. Well, you see, look, I think that enough has been said about the e-levy. And I have no doubt that the one reason why the Minister for Finance actually arrived at his decision of yesterday is, of course, the public engagements are certainly not going well. I'm sure that in all of those conference rooms, they sensed that the people of Ghana are totally opposed to the implementation of this e-levy. Sena, where have all the inflows they received in the course of the pandemic gone to? Yesterday, we listened to the IMF representative who admits that $430 million, that's the World Bank. The World Bank, sorry, came to government. The IMF gave them $2 billion. The World Bank at the time even gave them $100 million. Then the European Union gave them 85.6 million euros. The Bank of Ghana, that is our own central bank, 20 billion. Have you heard how some of these monies were expended? 32 million was spent on what? Reusable nose masks, Veronica buckets. 100 million of that amount. Can you imagine what that looks like? Sanitizers and the shambolic distributions that were made. Then we came down to meetings, and this is all contained in the Auditor General's report. Have you heard how much was expended on COVID meetings alone by government? Then we have the 12 billion that is still missing. And recently we've heard that over 50 billion was transferred from the Ghana Commercial Bank. You know, there's really no doubt that the monies that they found, for example, 250 million in the stabilization fund that was left by the Eswa Mahama administration. Sena, I think that everything has been said already by Sami Jemfi. We don't have to belabor the point. If we stop the corruption, if we stop the stealing, if we stop the waste, we will not even need the e-levy to do anything. GRA has not told us that they are unable to collect and that they are not meeting their targets. Do you understand? They admit that they've even exceeded their expectations. Yes. The VAT that was introduced was actually introduced also to replace customs and excise duties at the time. There is agitation everywhere. I'm sure you recall that in 2016, at the peak of the campaign, President Akufo-Addo assured entrepreneurs that they will work on reducing the taxes and that their business will flourish and they will make profits. His then vice president, oh, right here, but you know that the resources are all there. I could tell you were struggling to defend the indefensible. You understand? They struggled even at the time, even with the then candidates, his vice or running mate at the time, telling us without mincing words that all the attempts at taxation was a very lazy man's approach and that he had arrested the dollar and brought taking the keys. You know where the dollar is as we speak today? Where is the pound sterling? What is actually even mind-boggling is why the vice president is suddenly so quiet. The same Momo tax that was for the poor. Can you imagine a pensioner receiving the pension on this wallet and then to have a tax? But you see, there's also a certain culture of silence, which is why people speak to an entire state capture by key actors in government. That people dare not. Look, the telcos are very unhappy because suddenly over 3 million of monies that were initially in the wallets have totally disappeared. People are suddenly holding on to their monies. The same administration promised that each Ghanaian would have a bank account. Do you remember how much money was spent to entertain the cleaning up of the financial system? The number of jobs at the time that were lost. You know, when you have literally stripped everything off, I think when they arrived in government and saw the monies in the Ghana Infrastructure Fund, the Stabilization Fund, the ESLA, you know, I think they were totally confused. They thought there was so much money and that they could continue to swallow and pilfer it and yet somehow a lot more will come. They woke up suddenly and all the money was gone. They are completely mulcted in debt. They don't even know how they are going to repay the debts. Even the interest on those debts have become a challenge. The free SHS and funding of it the same. We were all here when Charles spoke about what was happening. We were here when all the groups, look at the benchmark withdrawals, and eventually even they had to renege on that particular promise. You see, it is not so much that we speak out of turn, but it's that we only speak to denigrate our predecessor because we want power. In fact, most of those promises were not even thought through. At least now we know that they've been exposed completely, literally caught pants down. I have no doubt in my mind that this e-levy is not going to be a sine qua non to any of our problems. My brother here is wrong. Look, it will not work on roads. It will not give us better drinking water. It will not give us a railway. It will not give us anything.
They've had 450.
Thank you.
They've not done
and they've done nothing.
It's 6.9 billion that you used.
That amount pales even in comparison. Even freebies they have received.
Yes.
Freebies. Tax-free monies that they have received from all sorts of institutions and continue to receive. Yes. You understand? So there is just no reason for us to continue this debate. It is actually totally a wasted effort. That is like a drop in a mighty ocean, and it will go nowhere. When you have tangible developmental projects that are aimed largely at ameliorating poverty or reducing poverty, the people themselves can tell. When the energy sector level was introduced, we were all suffering from power outages. Businesses were suffering. What has happened to the funds that were actually accrued into that kitty? Who has accounted for those monies? The amount from the stabilization fund that was utilized, $250 million, who was accounted for those monies? We watched the health minister at a commission set up by his own government in parliament. All the lapses and errors that led to all those huge sums being lost. Have you checked how much Frontiers at the airport have made since they were given that opportunity? And are still making. Most of the vaccines that we received were for free, gratis. Remember the promise to build was what? 88 hospitals, right? And then it was then 111. Yes.
Not even one.
Not even one. In fact, in Lekma in particular, they actually pulled down a building to replace it with a new facility. And the sword was excellent. The sword was cut. Nothing, no progress has been made. Look at the source of noise that we had to make for the UGMC to be opened. And I'm sure all of us sitting here know the intervention that that facility made in the lives of many of our own brothers and sisters who fell ill. They promised to deliver on all of these promises, and so far, none of them have been delivered. In any case, if in 6 years, you've squandered all these huge sums of money, what good is the e-levy to you? So you see, there is a very good reason why nobody believes the finance minister. And I listened to His Excellency the President himself, saying that he had run out of options and was literally almost appealing to the good people of Ghana. Have we seen President Akufo-Addo reducing the number of vehicles in his convoy? Have we heard him speak to the fact that I no longer want to travel with a private jet because it's too expensive and not cost effective? Have we heard him opt to travel commercial to show a certain concern, a certain empathy for the seeming Ghanaians who cannot afford to travel with private means? Or have we heard on any occasion any actor in government tell us that they are actually trying to introduce some austere measures? In fact, Office of Government Machinery has received an additional budget allocation of well over 450 million Ghana cedis. What do they do in that part of the country? What happens in the Office of Government? What do they need these huge sums of monies for? How much of those monies, in fact, in the pandemic, I'm told that the health ministry's budget itself has actually been reduced drastically from what it was in 2019 and of course in 2020 in the course of a pandemic. Check and find out whether doctors have been paid fully for all that they were promised during the pandemic.
Office of Government
yes,
has increased from 2 billion to
3.2. The difference is almost 460 million Ghana cedis. What do you do with those monies? You know, Sena, I am sure you don't have to be a politician to understand that this is a group of people who came into the system to amass wealth. And I am told and reliably informed that the finance minister's own companies are the ones that benefit largely from all of this borrowing and all the Euro bonds and road shows, name them. You know, when we come into office, not to build a country or a nation, when we come in without a vision, without any ambitions for the people of the country, and I'm sure so far, when was the last time you heard about how free SHS was the panacea to all of our problems? When was the last time you heard them boldly declare how much was being invested even in free SHS? When was the last time you heard them even condemn either of their appointees who have stolen copious amounts of money and same announced publicly? Even in some cases, the individuals were asked to step aside. There have been no investigations. Look, this government never intended to fight corruption. They never intended to stop profligate spending. They never even intended to stop the wastage. And remember that Ghana's economy was actually projected to grow by about 8% in 2017. What happened to that growth? It was squandered in the first few months of their arrival into office. You know, Sena, I have no doubt in my mind that they screamed themselves hoarse at the time we were in office about corruption. But it appears that President Mahama at the time did more even to fight corruption than this government has ever done.
Far more.
The Office of Special Prosecutor that was led then by the Honorable Matnamidu, what happened? Ajapa and all of these things that he was investigating, where did they all go to? The new Special Prosecutor, Sami Jemfi is here if I'm lying. What are his complaints so far? In fact, they are no different from what his predecessor complained about. Let's cut, excuse my French, the crap. There's nobody that is currently being deceived by what this government is doing or what their intentions were for even fighting so hard to come into government. It was to plunder the state. It was to replenish what they had lost chasing one individual's ambitions to become president. It was even to deny us of the basics that we were even enjoying before they came into office. And apart from that, they inherited a system that had received some policy credibility. In any case, how much did the IMF give us at the time? It was 2 billion, wasn't it? No. In about 3... Yes, no. Each year was about 900 or something, yes.
And this, we got just about 950 million.
Exactly.
They have had 2 billion.
Yes.
Aside the $430 million,
you understand?
The World Bank, and I hear Mujiboli coffee. Yes. When I mention the figures, because the figures are choking.
Yes, so think about it. You understand? And look at sector by sector the facilities that were developed, because we had a certain research that had actually indicated the need to build an infrastructure to improve jobs and create opportunities for the people of Ghana. So what blueprint did they also have, short of the noise and accusations that they were making all over the country? Go to Tamale and see the China Hydro loan was supposed to create an interchange. The interchange is still exactly as it was, totally cut off and smiling like a white elephant in the middle of the road. 6 years in office, they have performed woefully. They have failed to deliver on all the promises they made. Look, I keep saying, and I would like to repeat it here, just for good measure, that anywhere else, Honorable Kenneth Friata should or would have resigned from his portfolio as finance minister. He led us to all those borrowings without any remedies in place. He didn't even think about what the repercussions or ramifications were going to be. Suddenly, he's the same person telling us that we should allow him to collect the e-levy and ask him to account for it. Why? The Auditor General's report. He is supposed to be accounting for all those monies. He is in charge of the public kitty. Those institutions took the monies from those kitties. If those monies are lost, what is his responsibility? Look, when people elect you into office, you owe them a fiduciary care. You are obliged to report to them to ensure that our taxpayers' monies are not wasted. Remember when Teteke was in office? He even used to have issues with his own colleagues in cabinet because he would insist that we cut on spending, that we reduce expenditure on certain things and focus on the things that were important. There is a reason why certain individuals occupy that privileged positions of finance minister. You understand? They are the ombudsman. We don't have to come out every day and create the wrong impressions and make excuses. I think that the Honorable Finance Minister has one of all the excuses.
Chama Adikokas is
yes.
to tell you that he had a kinky party to celebrate.
I recall, and watch it. And he himself had, they were, yes. They were literally almost provoking a certain unnecessary reaction, even from the citizens.
Okay.
You understand, Sena?
This time we give it right. I already took you more than 10 minutes.
As for the e-levy, I think it will solve nothing. It will almost be like a salve, like taking the medication that is not going to cure you. It will not be a sine qua non for all of our challenges. Upper West region, if you don't have roads, e-levy will not deliver those roads, because I come from Savannah and the issues there are the same. You understand? When the Fufufu road was constructed, I heard all of you making noise all over the place. At least now you can even travel to Bole and come back the same day, because at least the road is more trouble. But there's a point. 6 years later, what investment has been made? Thank you.
Maintain the road.
They cannot even maintain the roads. So please, as for this e-levy, it will do absolutely nothing for a country that is already bankrupt and totally broke.
In fact, even Europe,
they have already spent it too. Because what they are planning to do is collateralize it for a loan for about 10 years.
Thank you very much. That one. So just a few things. This is
bring 2:1.
Well, this is coming from Micah Flu. Micah Flu says I should ask Mujib where in the world do they tax capital, savings, and investment? Because I am a tax expert, they are refusing to think outside the box. There's also Kojo Chumbua who is back, who says, Sena, as you speak, Akufo-Addo left last night in his private jet, and he provided a picture of the no, not President Akufo-Addo leaving, but the picture of the Wache KK party, the famous one. So those are some of the messages you are sending to us. Typically, I will not explain this. Right now, as we speak, the reason Mr. Pratt is not here is because we are marking 1 year since the passing of, for those of us in communications, someone who is a guru in communications, media, public relations. Nana Benyin Pratt. Nana Benyin Pratt turns out to be the younger brother of Mr. Kwesi Pratt. Passed on last year from COVID, and today we are commemorating his passing. And so when we leave here, we're going there to be part of that memorial, to also remember him. And also, this week, we were at Radio Gono reminded that it was exactly a year since Babo passed. Kwesi Seintiba for Bonnie. This week was also his 1 year since his passing. He was the founding chief executive of Radio Gold. And let me also say a happy birthday to Fred Kwesi Baini, who celebrates his birthday today. And a belated happy birthday to my good friend Edek Plim, Loloma Boagbamava. A belated happy birthday to you, and also to look at us. And I was also celebrated his birthday earlier this week. My name is Sena Nombo. We are back same time next week. Let me say a big thank you to my panel today. Let me start from Mujib Brahman, who is a member of the MPP's communication team. Wonderful to see him today. He's been moving all around, so it's difficult to get him nowadays. It's wonderful to see your face, and thank God that you're okay. Close to you. Yeah, that's right. That's what I do know. Sitting right by him is Sami Jemfi Esquire, who is the National Communications Officer of the New Patriot. The National Democratic the largest sorry. Very sorry. Very sorry. And also a big thank you to Dr. Valentin Mensah, who is a political economist. And of course, always wonderful to see Mrs. Joyce Bawa Muktari Esquire, who is an aide to former President John Dramani Mahama. My name is Sena. We are done for today. Thank you very much. I always love having Sami here. Whenever he's here, it reminds me of money. Last time he allocated 5,000 to me. Today he reminded me that the dollar is 6.8, and I was smiling because I am rich. Madam Joyce Bawa Muktari knows why. So, enjoy your weekend and have a fruitful week.
Okay, good.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.